Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. We got a special episode for you today, the 1000th episode ever of the DNVR/BSN Avalanche podcast. Rudo and AJ, of course. We have some old familiar faces on the show, and Jesse Montano and JJ Jerez.
Yo, calling him old?
I was going to say.
JJ hasn't aged a day.
I was actually curious. How old are you, Jesse? Are
JJ
you
looks younger than the last time I saw him.
See,
No, I'm getting
real.
gray. I'm getting gray, boys. I'm getting gray.
That's
My
just,
clock's ticking.
That's just style points at this age.
I know JJ's older than me. I'm not sure about
I'm 28.
Jesse. All right, so you're younger than me.
Yeah. I'll be 29 in September, though.
Nice. Welcome to almost being old.
Yeah. I'm right on the cusp.
So not even the youngest person on this podcast.
How old are you?
But I'm 29. Barely
Okay,
got you.
yeah. All right, cool. I feel you.
These children.
JJ
32 for those.
Under 30, yeah.
So AJ,
Well, I guess at this
old
point-
man AJ over
True.
here.
I turned 34 in August.
Seriously?
You're ancient, basically.
That's mostly just crazy because exactly what we're here talking about. Like,
Yeah.
that's just crazy that you're now 34 and
The lady
weren't
that I bought my
34 when I
car
met
from
you.
on Monday didn't believe me until I showed her my license. She was like, "You don't look 30 at all," and I was like,
thank you.
"That's awesome, cool, thanks."
Yeah, I got ID'd at Blackhawk, but it makes me think about in perspective with the team, right? How old would you be if you were on the Avalanche right now?
I don't
You'd
like
be
playing that game.
Playing your way out of the league, right? When we first started, I was 25, you were 27, we were right there in the mix with them, and now it's like, oh, we would.
dude,
Well, and there
We
were
could get
like
sent
that was
out.
when they were obsessed with old guys, right?
Yeah.
That's when they were
True.
like,
Didn't
"Oh,
even
34
get into
years
the
old
league until you're 27. Yeah.
Well, I was just saying that's the part that like really does bum me out because like we talk about guys now. It's like, do you really want to sign that guy to 5 years when he's 28? And I'm like, wait, I'm 28.
Yeah,
like, does that mean that I'm too old?
It's rough. My draft year was Duchesne's year, and it's like
My draft
that
year.
was 11 years ago, man.
I do remember thinking it was super cool when my birth year was available in the NHL games. Like that you could actually create a player that was
Yeah.
your birth year.
Yeah.
That was so cool. And now I have to like scroll to get it.
Your starter is a grizzled vet
Yeah,
in
yeah,
NHL
yeah.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same birth year as EJ and Varley, right? And seeing those guys limp through their last 3-4 years
Yeah.
is like that's where I would
And
be.
especially like EJ.
Yeah.
Like when
Just
like,
break
the
down.
way that people talk about EJ, like he's in a freaking wheelchair.
I was just talking about him like that
You're like,
last week.
Oh my god!
I was like, I just don't know if he can do it at his age, 32. You
No.
just don't bounce back from
Seattle
that.
doesn't want his old ass.
That's hilarious.
Thank you for the super chats. We'll get to them in a little bit, chat. I suppose we should start with AJ because episode 1 of this podcast did not have any of Jesse, JJ, or myself on it.
It's true. I don't know.
As AJ gets a phone
Yeah.
call immediately
Sorry,
that he's got to
I gotta-
take.
This is an ongoing thing.
He's trying to sell his car right now, chat, in the
and
middle
now I
of
have
the
to sit
show.
all sideways and funny on the camera.
Just wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
In the
So,
middle of the show.
I remember listening to the first one after I had started because I actually remember when we were approaching the 100th episode. It was right before we went to the 5 days a week.
Yep. Yeah.
And so we were getting ready to like cut something together for the 100th. And I remember going back and re-listening to the first one and thinking, yeah, like, who is this? Like, because I was expecting it to be you. And I didn't know who it was. And then we started doing the 5 days a week, and 100 just got, like, we blew by 100.
I think because it was once a week at the start, right?
Yeah.
And I started on the podcast outside of the one-off I did at the very beginning before I was hired here.
The tryout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Brought him in for camp.
It took 2 years after that for them to actually hire me, so it was a slow burn. But doing it every week and with playoffs and stuff, sometimes it's 6 days a week. I think I've been on close to half of them.
Yeah.
For about 2 years I've been here, so it started a lot slower, and then the everyday thing picked it up real quick.
Yeah, I bet. I remember the way it all started, honestly. AJ and I were sitting in the press box, and hockey podcasts were a thing, but they were still kind of new, right? You really only had the American Wyshynski, the originators. It was still that long ago. I would say 7 years ago. And AJ and I would just spit back and forth, sitting next to each other in the press box. I love the Photoshop version of AJ.
AJ's still here in spirit, yeah.
And
I saw that pulled up real big. I was like, what are you doing?
And the conversations AJ and I would have were just like, wow, this is podcast material. We should really start a podcast. And him and I, between ourselves, kind of got the wheels turning on that. And then all of a sudden, he's like, hey, I have a podcast with Drew Spevik, and we're going to see how long that lasts, and then you're up next. I'm
So
like,
you're telling me that
cool.
we are on a 1,000th episode for a podcast that started the way every other podcast starts but fizzles out after 2 episodes?
Basically.
We could do a podcast. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
1,000 episodes.
Honestly, AJ, if you remember, it was the game you and I were sitting next to Martin Brodeur, and you and I were just cracking joke after joke about just look at the pictures behind you, just if Martin Brodeur would have heard us, he might have pumped us, but that was really what ignited us to really want to do a podcast.
Yeah, we got along really, really well. Just naturally, in a media
Tell us
room
about the
full
first
of old
episode
dudes.
without a phone call interrupting.
Yeah. Not the person taking my car, by the way, but my roommate who drinks too much to remember our previous conversations.
I thought you were going to say that your warranty had expired.
No. So, a few years ago.
Yeah. I got to take this. My warranty's almost up.
No, the first episode was so weird because it was like, because Drew Spivak had a lot of radio experience. I'd like talked on the radio as a guest like twice in my life. When I was at Mile High Hockey, I did a draft episode in 2011 where I talked about Landeskog and Duncan Siemens, which was kind of weird because that's what ended up happening. Yep. And then I remember I was on a radio show in like Colorado Springs one time, and that was cool. And I'd never like been on a radio program, and then he like comes in with like that like the radio voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is happening? Like,
hey everybody, welcome in. This is another
and I like he started talking to me, and I was just looking at him like he was like totally like he was an alien, right? Had no like I did not belong in that room at the time. I was just like, what am I supposed to do? Because the only other podcast experience I had was like the MHH pod, which was like 3 hours long. We recorded it on Skype, and it was just 5 people talking over each other the whole time. It was mass chaos.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Exactly. And it was just mass chaos. And the first episode, we talked about the trade deadline. It was the upcoming trade deadline. It was Mikhail Bodker,
Sean Matthias.
It was that deadline, and those things hadn't happened yet. And we were talking about, are the Avs contenders? Should they make a big move to try and sneak into the postseason? Is it worth it? Blah 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 blah. And that was like our first ever episode. Funny because now trade deadline episodes kind of are awful.
Trade deadline, everything is awful now because nothing happens anymore. TSN even shortened theirs down to like 3 hours. You used to make an 8-hour block.
We did a 4-hour show where we did literally like nothing.
Well, and do you remember at the Colorado Media School, we did it. Jesse worked his ass off to set up this whole special episode. We booked studio time. We got Dater to come down, which at the time was like Dater, I guess we should put this out here now. Dater also contributed to the pod, making it to 1,000 episodes. Never gets to 1,000 episodes without Adrian Dater's contributions.
Yeah,
don't want us to act like it never happened. That's not at all what's going on here. But we got him to come down to the studio. It was a whole thing. Like we'd carved out all this time, and then they literally did nothing that day.
Yeah.
Not a single thing happened. That was the day of the Ryan McDonough to Tampa Bay deal. That happened right at the buzzer, and the Avs did nothing.
They were trying to move Tootin, right?
They were trying to
do a lot of things. I'm sure. Yeah.
And they did nothing. Dater and I go to the bar next door and are sitting at the bar when we get the notification that they had traded Chris Biegroff for Ryan Graves, which at the time we both went, cool.
The streak is alive.
Yeah.
That was like their 17th straight year making
that was
a deal
what we
or
cared
something.
about.
Yeah.
The streak lives of deadline deals. Great. They've done something. At the time, it was like, oh, that's too bad for Biegroff. Ryan Graves is in a similar position, a guy who was supposed to break into the Rangers a year or two ago. It didn't happen. Who cares? This doesn't matter.
That was the first episode that we tried, we did do like live on Twitter where we took questions and, you know, we tried to seriously make it like this whole live thing. And yeah, we ended up just sitting there for 3 hours, like staring at each other, literally saying, like mouthing that to each other. Like, what do we do?
I remember when AJ and I first got going, we would leave those first couple podcasts because, like he said, he didn't know what he was doing. I hardly knew what I was doing. We'd be like, was that even good? I don't even think. I think that was kind of terrible. And luckily, the listeners, who are fantastic and always have been, would give us the feedback and pump our tires and make us feel good about ourselves. But after we record, we'd be like, man, we got to be better next time.
So I know I've told the story probably even on the pod before, but it's 1,000 episodes, so I'll tell it again. That you two are actually how I got involved with this. I used to sit at my desk, and I would wait every week for the AJ and JJ podcast to come out, and I'd listen to it. And then I started going to the media school, and I heard you mention it one day on the pod. You were like, yeah, we're down here at the media school. And I was like, I'm going to go find these dudes. And so I did. Who was it after Dan the Viking?
Talking about Rob the Robert?
Rob, yeah. Rob. And I met Rob, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I come down and sit with you? And that was how I started, like, shadowing him.
Yep.
And there was 1 week, he was like, yeah, I can't make it. And then I don't think he, like, ever came back. And you were stuck with me, yeah.
Yeah.
Rob the Robert, if you're out there, let us know how you're doing.
He is still a listener.
Oh, nice.
He has been in media this whole time. He graduated from the media school, got a job in media, and he's working in media now.
Rob's an awesome guy. He's an awesome dude.
He was so soft spoken. He was just such a different.
That's like we didn't have a nickname for him.
Yeah,
it was the Robert.
Yeah, I remember you were like Rob, and we were like, what do we? Because like Dan the Viking was easy, right?
Right.
And because he, from Minnesota, and he had that look, and then it was like Rob the Robert, and that's all I can ever remember him as now. I don't think of him as Robert Tan. I think of him as Rob the Robert.
Amazing.
But yeah, no. So I literally like hunted you guys down, and now I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
All right, so you hunted them down.
Yep.
And then what was your first episode on the show like?
Oh, damn. Well, I think technically like, the first time I was on was that first one I went and sat in on, and one of you guys asked me, like, we got someone new behind the glass, and you guys like asked me a couple like super surface level like questions off the top. Mm-hmm. And then for a long time, I was just the producer, and I had a mic, and so I would like chime in on stuff. So I was on the show technically for a while before I actually started being on the show. Yeah.
The best ability in this industry is reliability, right? You just have to be there when people can count on you, and obviously it gets you far.
Yeah, seriously.
That's straight up what got you where you are.
Just keep doing it.
Well, it's funny because like the number of people who like reach out and ask like, oh, well, how do I get into media, and how do I get a start? How do I do this? And I'm like,
you just got to do it, man.
Look, you have to decide that the rest of your life sucks, and that this is the only thing you want to do, because you will sacrifice everything for it. You will give up every ounce of the rest of your life to try and make it work, and that's it. Like that's the only way it's the only way that you can succeed. If you don't do that, you don't even give yourself a chance.
And it's like the most cliche thing ever, but like you have to literally just say yes to everything.
Yeah.
The first show that I sat in the in the behind the glass, Rob was like, yeah, you can come with me, but you'll probably just have to sit there for like 2 hours. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll sit there for 2 hours. And like that's what you just have to do. You got to say yes to everything. And then to your point, you got to be willing to give up everything. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but you and I drove all over town 5 days a week.
Yeah, part of the reason I need a new car is because of all the miles we put on it.
Seriously,
driving around from random bar to random, like the number of times that we did shows in like the northwest corner of the city, which is like an hour and 15 minutes from where I live, out in the boonies.
From where either of us lived at the time.
Yeah. And it was just like, oh, we're doing a show at 6 o'clock at this random ass bar. Okay, leave at 4:30.
Yeah, right in the middle of rush hour.
Get home at like 9 o'clock at night, and just like, okay, well, hope that was good.
1 a.m. pods from the press box at Pepsi Center.
I remember when you guys were doing.
man.
Yeah.
You tried the between period pods for a little while too.
We were trying anything to not be there until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Like that was literally the only motivation behind the in between period pods. Is because we would get done writing. I'd do game grades. He would do game recap.
Yeah.
And we'd like submit everything, get everything posted. To go, okay,
Let's pod.
you ready to start? And it was just brutal. So we were like, let's try doing them during.
And now it's the reverse.
Yeah.
We do the pod immediately after,
Yeah.
and then the
And then
writing
the
just
writing,
sort of
yeah.
happens.
It gets pushed back.
It just magically appears on the internet. in the middle
AJ
of the
doing
night.
90 down Colfax to get back to the bar.
You really don't have to. It doesn't take that long to get between them.
Remember, I got here in literally like 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys flew.
It really doesn't. As long as you get, and if you avoid like the arena traffic, it's really not that bad.
That's what's beautiful about Denver is there are times where you can, I call it light surfing, right? Broadway's Broadway is one of the most notorious for that. You catch a green
yeah.
light and suddenly you could just, if you go
Yep.
the right speed, you catch every
Wadsworth is
green,
like that
green,
too.
green.
Oh, what's that? I've just gone 5 miles and haven't stopped.
Yep.
The first time I figured out that Wads is like that is when I went through on a yellow, like turned yellow, and then I went through like 9 straight yellow lights. I was like, I think these are synced up somehow. Yeah, no, you're right. If you catch it right, you can get around quick.
All right. Chat, as most of you probably know these days on YouTube, I have a walnut bladder. So I didn't go before the show, so we're going to have to take care of that. So if Allie wants to read some super chats right now, now is the time.
People are just like wandering in and out of the
Yeah,
podcast. This is great.
That's the vibe for its show 1000. We're just hanging out right now.
Killing me, always. All right. We have Jacob Hill saying no celebratory jorts.
I asked.
No, not for this show.
I asked if he was going to wear the jorts for the 1000th episode.
You know what else we
And-
need are gummy bears.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Do you remember how that all started?
Yeah, dude. One of the guys that actually he wrote one of our trade deadline articles this year. Sent me a pound bag of gummy
So that
bears.
Sick
so that
callback.
bit ran on even after I left. Okay, because it all started. You know, that's what made us a really good combination. I think is I always tried to be this rigid professional. You know, people would call me robotic, and you were the one just kicking back, having fun, and we're in the middle of a podcast. And I remember you were the producer of it too, and you're just sitting there.
You'd hear him rooting through the gummy bears in my headphones. Yeah. JJ's talking. You just hear
I
AJ.
just stop. Like, you're gonna eat gummy bears on the podcast, and I guess from there it just lived on, which I love. I love that it carried on.
If anyone's looking to send me a pound of gummy bears, I'm open. I'm available.
that devolved
Pound of
into.
anything.
I remember at training camp one time, Dater eating a French dip.
Oh, dude, I know exactly
And, like,
what you're talking about.
If any of you guys have ever been around Dater when he eats, and he's just like a vacuum cleaner.
Every
and-
time Dater sits down to eat, he looks like he hasn't eaten in 3 weeks.
Yeah, because he just like the food just like gravitates toward his face, all of it, all at once, and then he uses those big old bear claws to kind of just guide the rest of it in after it's been mashed around his face for a while.
my
Well, he's trying to
God.
talk the whole time too.
And
So he's
yeah.
like got all kinds of stuff to get
And
out.
so there's like food's like flying around all over the place, and like if you one of these days I'm gonna catch him on video in the press box eating popcorn. I know both of you have seen this, but it's just so funny. And like he was eating a French dip on the show where he was just like like right into the microphone, and we got so many
Ajou's
people.
just dripping
Oh, dude.
everywhere, bro.
And that was the last Matt Duchesne training camp.
yeah.
Because he came over to us. He saw us in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And came over to us before that show went live and talked to us about. He was like, "Hey,
Well-
I'm not trying to start anything. I don't. I'm not."
Because it
not
was the
trying to
day
make
that
it
he didn't do
difficult."
media availability, and everyone was like crucifying him for it.
Yeah.
It's like he's just trying to avoid talking to people. He's trying to make this about himself.
Yeah.
And he came up to us, and I was like, "Hey, like, I mean, exactly what AJ was just
we
saying."
We
but-
were cool about we were like, hey man, you got to do what you got to do. He was like, look, I'm just trying to keep the focus on the team. I don't want to make this about me, and if I talk, then it will be.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 days that he didn't talk, and then he randomly was talking, and Chambers like boxed everybody out, and like was like, this is an exclusive, and it was like, okay. And he like put up on Twitter and all over the website that it was exclusive. And I was like, bro, I was literally standing right there when that happened. Sorry, I got to do this.
Are you leaving again?
Yep.
Oh my god.
Sorry, it should be the last time. Hello.
Change places.
JJ and I needed cartoon pictures.
Yeah, clearly. You're leading the show.
Yeah, I was
right
gonna
now.
say we're the only ones.
Hey, we can carry it.
They haven't left yet.
I've got the most on-chair time right now. JJ and I are tied.
Well, I mean, that's what this show is about, though. The show is about everything that has gone on with this podcast leading up to now, and y'all are the ones that brought it to where it is today. I just showed up and just talked at people. I didn't do anything special.
So I mean, like,
We got to one super chat.
Oh God. Okay.
Just
oh
so-
yeah.
I assumed you got to a couple more than that.
I am free.
Woo!
AJ no longer has his old car. Everyone claps
Did you
for
ever
AJ.
get a window in that bad boy, or is it still a T-shirt?
That's actually how I always identified it in the Pepsi Center parking lot. Like, there's the one. I'd park next to him.
Just talking to the fiance, I was like, I'm not going to be able to recognize my car in the parking lot anymore.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a busted out back window.
Yeah.
P.S. You know how that window got broken out?
I know you've told me
It
before.
got shot out.
Yeah. That's
Sitting
right.
in front of a house I used to live in.
Sounds about right.
Were you
Aurora,
were
baby.
you were sitting in front of a house, or the car
The
was
car.
out? Okay. I was like, whoa, what were you
I was chilling.
What were you doing?
No, but to Rudo's point, it's crazy to see kind of the way this show has evolved from what it was when we started up in
Yeah.
that little moped store to this production. I mean, this is amazing what you guys have going on, and Allie obviously doing an awesome job with
you.
the digital side. So, kudos to what you guys built since I left. I mean, it's been badass, but obviously I think it's all the listeners, right? Without them and their support, and
for real.
they've been amazing to all of us. And a lot of times I put my hands up and like, why us?
Yeah.
Well, so
Amen
what's
to
so,
that.
what's so funny about you saying that is, like, honestly, people still, like, most people that interact with me on Twitter are because of this show, and they reference stuff from old shows, or they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I remember that episode when you guys blah blah blah," and it's like, still all these
Yep. I still get references about my cucumber fizz phase. You remember the cucumber fizzes? Those were
do.
delicious. I still love
I
them.
do remember that.
I tried to order one somewhere once, and they were like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," and I told you, like, "Oh, that's only one specific bar. You can't like go around asking for
free ads.
that." Yeah.
Aw. Appreciate you, Dario. Appreciate all the times you've come onto the show.
Yeah, seriously.
He'll have to come back.
Yeah,
at
we'll
some
see you
point.
again for the draft in a month.
We should have all you guys on for the expansion draft.
Oh my
a
god, the
zoo of
expansion
people.
draft. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
so what? Oh, I'm sorry. Were you
We
gonna
got some
go
super
to another
chats.
one?
Like an
Okay, yeah.
avalanche
Real
zoo,
quick.
like a podcast zoo.
Vaguely sober here saying, you guys remember when I sent you the mic when you were first getting started doing
Yeah.
pods, AJ and JJ?
Oh, I know. That's Mr. Forpoyo
Yeah,
right there. I
exactly.
recognize
Yeah.
that cat. Absolutely. I still
I
have that
recognize that
microphone.
cat.
I actually just pulled that microphone out about 2 days ago, and I was like, man, I wish, because it has the old aux? No, the
whatever
headphone
XLR.
cord,
Headphone
right,
jack,
instead of the
yeah.
fire or whatever it's called these days. And I was like, man, I wish this was still useful because it was a cool little microphone. I still have it. So yeah,
That's a.
I'm weird like that.
That piece of memorabilia could be worth millions someday.
Maybe one day. I know, AJ, I saw you talking about your new car and how sentimental you were with your old one.
Yeah.
I'm strangely like that with every material possession I have. Like every
I'm the same
possession. I'm like, I remember exactly where I got it. Like it means something to me because of that. I'm stupid. It's like a slight,
I mean, going
No,
through
that's
order
fantastic.
in me.
I went
No,
through my
that's
old
great.
car the other day, and I found a Slinky and was like, I don't know when I bought this. I don't know why it's been sitting in my car all these years, but I'm glad that I found it, and I'm taking this to Canada.
This goes into the new car now. It's staying there for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we got another super chat saying here, been here for about 500 episodes. Just wanted to say I appreciate everything y'all do. Can't wait for 2K.
Thank you, Eddie.
Appreciate
Much
I'd love to
appreciated.
know, because we were talking about it, I think when you first got up to that first phone call,
Yeah.
was how, like, I remember when we were still at the media school and we were leading up to 100 episodes, and we were talking about, like, let's do something cool for 100 episodes. Like, let's cut together some of, like, the best moments, stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then it was like a week after we had that conversation, Brandon came to us and was like, all right, we're going to go to 5 days a week. And we blew by 100 so quick that we were like, cool, we'll try to do something special for 200. Then we were by 200 before we knew, like,
Yeah.
all right, we'll try to do something special for 300. And so I'd love to know when, someone who says they've been here for about 500 episodes, I'd love to see the timeline of episode 1 versus now.
1,000.
And
Yeah.
and to your point, JJ, about, like, being up, in studio and this setup and all that stuff, just thinking back to all the different iterations this went through, because you said that the initial play, a little moped shop, I didn't know that.
Oh, dude, we would walk in there and we would roll in
9 in the morning on a Saturday. I was in a very heavy drinking phase too, so I was one eye shut, and there was no heat up there.
Yeah, whatever the temperature was outside, the temperature was exaggerated up in that.
Matched,
So if it was really cold outside, it was even colder up in that attic. And we would go in there and we had to walk up the narrowest staircase in existence, and you would spill out into this murder attic, and you're just this is crazy.
How'd you find
man.
this place?
So the South Stands podcast, as RK laughs about this, reminiscing about the good old days. The South Stands, where the South Stands guys record theirs above the that scooter shop on Broadway, and I can't remember the name of it. Otherwise, Sportique. That's a Sportique. Oh my god.
But so there was that. Then the media school, which I honestly I still love that studio.
Oh yeah, me
the
too.
media school.
The
That's a
initial
great
one, the small one.
Yeah.
The one that was also. Remember the time
the window.
We had the turntable going in front of us, and
Oh,
somebody
that was-
forgot to turn it off.
We couldn't stop pushing buttons.
We.
Okay.
There was no we about it. Me trying to
Stop
be
pushing buttons.
He's in there going do.
rooting through the gummy bears and making beats on air.
Oh my god.
And then we did
Don't
where
let AJ get a hold of that.
it was just all over town. It was in different bars and restaurants and the press. It was everywhere. And then it was Zencast. And those were some nightmare editing. There were nights where I was up so late because all that stuff would record. All the files would come through jumbled. And half it'd be cut off and they would just they would lag. So by 20 minutes in, we were all talking. Me, AJ, and Data were all talking over top of each other about the same thing, but it was in real time. It sounded really nice, all spaced out. So having to cut all that stuff, and then and now you guys are here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was something in between there, but this just go. Oh, I guess the old office.
Yeah, that my first ever episode of the show was the very first episode in the old office.
Yeah.
Which y'all brought me on for the first time because it was a prospect. Oh god, there's some old office stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing prospect rankings.
Yeah, we're doing prospect rankings and
I've got a picture of Dater with that goalie mask on.
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
air guitar to Kiss. Again,
right
one of the
here.
first live episodes that we did. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Just
Let's go 65.
dude, the old office had some great times in it for real.
I don't think I can.
that thumbnail, whatever that thumbnail is right
the
there.
first episode there was not a great time though.
No.
Y'all brought me in. I had no idea what I was getting into. And
Neither did we.
So
Yeah.
all right. First of all, I show up and it's
We couldn't get in. We couldn't get in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's right, because that door didn't unlock properly.
the door didn't unlock properly, and
Oh god, these memories.
so I got there either before or after you guys, and eventually someone let me in. But y'all had just moved into that office, so it still had some lawyer's name on the plaque next to the door.
I don't even think all the furniture was assembled at that time.
I went all
Probably
over
not.
the building
When you came and helped us build desks.
Oh yeah, dude.
none, None of the doors said BSN on them, so
Yep.
I was like, "Am I at the right place?"
Yep. I
we had-
remember
we had-
all of these things.
We had LG at the old office.
That was a really
It
good
was a
time.
super fun show.
That was the show that got posted was 90 minutes, and we were actually there for 4
Well, you remember
hours.
why, right? We did
Was there
half that episode, and
Yeah.
none of it saved.
Yeah, that's
No.
right.
We had
That's
done
right.
it was we were doing a 90-minute episode, and we had talked about that. We got 45, 50 minutes in
with a high profile guest.
right, and none of it. It just all disappeared. And I remember sitting there, and I was like, all right, cool, we're gonna be good to go for segment 2 here. And I was typing, and they were talking, and I just went, oh shit. And you went,
Oh God.
what? And I was like, yeah, it's all gone. It's all, and again, to your point, high profile guest, LG was a total pro about it. She could have super easily been like, well, guys, I don't really have the time, whatever. But she was super cool and was like, yeah, no worries. Happened to me a dozen times before. Let's just run it back. And so we ended up being there for like 4.5, 5 hours for like a 90-minute show.
How many shows before we started doing live shows? How many shows did we record a segment, look down, and someone go, "My microphone was off for that." Whole thing.
Yeah. My mic was off. Or you'll be sitting there playing, and you'll click it on. You're like, oh shit. Yeah.
That happened to me and AJ once that I can recall. We were at training camp trying to record right after the ice session, and I don't know how he was when it happened with you guys, but when
dozens of times
he turns into this person where he's still himself audibly, but you could see in his face that he just hates every second that's going on, and he hates you for making that mistake, but he still, like I said, audibly it still sounds like he's right on cue and right on where he needs to be.
Well, it was like how he answered the phone right before we started. Exactly. Hello? It's like, ooh, he's pissed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I waited 2 days for that phone call. And I've been like running errands within a certain distance of my house so that I could get back in case I got that call. And they told me, they were like, he will call you within an hour. By the way, that guy called me and was like, I will be at your house in 15 minutes.
Oh, gee.
And I was like, I'm not within an hour of my house, so I don't care anymore. But yeah, I remember that episode. We were talking about the Boston Bruins, and I remember because it was such a good segment. Like JJ and I had we'd hit every single thing that we wanted to talk about. And I was so mad that I had to do it again, that we had to repeat the conversations because they weren't going to sound authentic.
I was just about to say,
we nailed it.
Nobody ever knew.
It was like almost scripted because we just did the exact same
We went
thing.
in the same order, had the same conversation.
because that was always the hard part about when that happened, you realize you had to redo something. It always happened on one where it's like, damn, this is such good conversation. This is great content. And somebody's mic is off. And yeah, it just feels all so forced after. But when you go back and re-listen to it, almost all of them, it sounds totally natural, totally normal. But yeah, there were a lot of nights, press box and stuff like that, where one of us halfway through, and most of the times it's like 10, 15 minutes in, one of us would click our mic on and be like, yep, didn't have that on. Sorry about that.
JJ, do you remember the episode we did that did not save? And it was in the Colorado
I've heard
Media
stories
School.
about this podcast.
It was in the Colorado Media School, and it was in the tiny booth with the window. And I had just gotten off an airplane that morning and went straight to the studio.
Yeah.
And I was running on pure Mountain Dew. And we were talking about the goal song. Because you remember that year that they had the awful that everybody hated.
Yeah.
And I went on a big time rant about the Avs and the goal song and how awful it was, and that episode did not save. It was like the file got corrupted or whatever, and it didn't save. So 4 people know about that, have heard that episode.
I never actually heard that. You don't remember that?
No.
I never heard that, but I remember that being something that you guys talked about and me saying I want to hear it. And I thought someone said that it was out there somewhere and that someone would
I have a copy of it.
Yeah. and that it never got posted.
yes.
And I've still never heard it to this day.
I'm so ready for the BSN Lost Media to come out.
I have that episode.
AJ, didn't you get a call from someone about that rant?
Yes. I did get a phone call about that rant.
Yeah. Well, and then that was the other fun thing about all the media school stuff was those were all technically live. And I remember we'd send out the link every now and then.
That's true.
Is that how somebody heard it? Because if it never got published, then how did you get a phone call?
They had to have been listening to it live.
Because we would send out
then,
I don't even remember what the website was, but we'd send out the website.
It was some janky ass website.
Like radio.fm.sounds.com or something like that.
Backslash, and there was 13 random letters and numbers.
And it would play outside of the studio, right?
Yeah.
The little speakers, so people would be walking by.
We'd be talking to
who are
them.
these guys? Yeah, I would start talking to them as they're walking by.
So I guess this was very different for me because did the vast majority of both your guys' podcasts, were you live together in the same place?
100%. I didn't start doing non-live podcasts until COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, up until the Zencaster era, which was well into the 5 days. That was why we did it. 'Cause we were like, I was like, I can't keep driving this much. Like, I can't afford to drive this much.
Yeah.
And so that was why we had to go to the Zencaster stuff. So I mean, we were several hundred episodes in at that point.
So I meant to text you a couple weeks ago. I ran out of space on my computer. And I downloaded like a program that analyzed where all of my space was getting used, and I was going through everything.
Yeah.
And I found like 75 gigabytes worth of audio files.
Just old podcasts.
And I was like, what is this? And I start looking through it, and they're all Zencaster files.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And they're dated like it's like 2018.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, oh my God, dude. And I was so tempted to just like listen to several of them.
So there's
And then I got rid of
some
'em.
there's some really good stuff on a lot of that raw audio because it wasn't live. We would just be because it was all sort of like make sure we edit that out later.
Yeah.
And I've got one of my on my computer of you and Dater just going at like screaming going at it. And my favorite part is like you guys are screaming and I was like, all right, you guys ready? Yeah, let's do this. And it's like literally 5 seconds screaming to right back into, all right, segment number 2 here. AJ, Dater, Jesse, blah, blah, blah. And AJ's like breathing heavy into the mic. You can like he's like sweating, pissed off. AD's always breathing heavy into the mic. And, but yeah, no, there's some of those old ones that are just like the raw, because we just hit record and just go.
I would say that was also the one thing that happened more in the AD era of the show than really any of the others. Like, I never really fought that much with you guys about stuff. Like, we would disagree on stuff, but we wouldn't like.
Well,
There wasn't like a lot
It
of
wasn't
like.
that heated.
There wasn't like a lot of heated back and forth.
What
And
was
with AD,
always-
it would get. There were times where we would get entrenched.
What was always so funny about that, though, and I mean, it's still the case for 100% of the shows you do, I'm sure. But, like, I remember those more than anything were, like, so split amongst listeners because some people really like the D-Max style, arguing on air, really polar opposite opinions, really hard stances.
Well, like, the other guy's an idiot. How could you think this?
Right,
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
And then
super reductive conversation.
Right, and there are some people that loved that during the AD era.
We get it all the time.
One of our biggest complaints is that
you
we agree too much.
Yeah. Well, and because that's the problem is you'd get the people that would say that about AD, and then he'd be gone. You and I would do a show like, oh, all you guys did is agree, and it's like, okay, what is it? Last week you didn't agree enough. Now you're agreeing too much.
Right.
But I feel like it's always going to be that way. You're never going to please everyone.
Yeah.
And I feel like we took from that and we're like, you know what? We're just going to be ourselves as
Well,
much
and
as
when you're
possible.
trying to grow a
100%,
show
Allie.
and you're listening to feedback as
Those are some
closely as
sick
we
hits.
did,
Mine?
when you're
Yeah, I
Thanks,
want
man.
some of those.
when you're reading every single review like it's life or death,
Yeah.
when you're like when
got
every
bad
single
shoes
person that tweets about your show, you take it really, really seriously. You take it really personally because you want it to be good. And when people are like, "This is bullshit," you're like, "All right, well, let's try and do this differently." And then you would do it, and then a different person would not like
complain
it,
about
and you're
something
like,
else, yeah.
you're like, okay. So
when it
you
got-
have to learn that you're not going to make everybody happy.
When it got down to you and me, literally, we were doing 5 shows a week, and we were doing 5 different types of shows a week because we were taking feedback
Yeah.
from every single one, and we were like, we're gonna find something eventually that they like. Like, we're gonna find something, and I think that was the first like real lesson in my life where I was just like, that's never gonna happen. You just have to you have to do whatever you think is best and is gonna please the most people, and that's what you got to run with. Because we were literally changing up what we were doing. I mean, not like crazy, but we were trying different stuff every single day. Just trying to make sure, trying to get no negative feedback, and it
was
never
like
happened.
You guys needed to find your identity as a show. And
Right.
you were able
Well, and
to
that's
do
it's
so.
hard to do because like we were growing up in the business. We were trying
Yeah.
to find as a company, we were trying to find our identity. There was a
Totally.
lot of pressure. You know, when AD was around, there was a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to be a really old school style outlet. You know, you
and
be really professional here, and you do. You know, you write. This is what you write. This is what you talk about on the show. Like it was a very old school type of approach. And then when AD left, it changed. You know, like we never, like JJ and I didn't, because we were only doing 1 show a week. We just didn't have as many shows to like figure all of that out, which is what I think made our success so interesting, is that we didn't need as many. we fell right into the pattern that we were in the press box, where we would have those conversations. We would have like really in-depth hockey conversations from different perspectives, but it was an entertaining mix.
Is the truth that show was successful because you had a goalie on the show? Is that what it was?
That's what I remember hearing.
I like to think that it was just show prep. You know, I had a background in radio before that, and I had a lot of guys, Josh Dover
Big
being
time
one
in
of
us
them.
here.
Yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't the biggest radio station, believe me. And, you know, I just had good mentors that really showed me that preparation was everything. So I spent more time preparing for I still do with all the podcasts I do, because it's just about the way you structure it, and you have that to fall back on when things start to suck, right? Like, you can feel it slipping, like, oh, wow, we're running out of shit to say, pivot to point B that I have already prepared.
What drew me to your guys' show, and what I always appreciated was, and to this day, including the shows that I was on, Rudo, no offense, that was, I think, the most like natural conversation that I've heard. Because even I mean, like, Jeff Merrick is like god tier podcast host.
Dude. Yeah, insane.
But like that show that you guys did, it really did. It sounded like two really smart hockey people sitting in the press box talking about it.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel super rigid, structured, this, that, and the other. It was good content.
You can tell that they were friends off the pod.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing that separated us too, is at that point there were 5 people covering the Avalanche. Me, AJ, Terry Fry, Rick Sadowski, and
Mike Chambers.
Chambers. Yeah, that's about it. And, you know, so of those 5.
Remember, that was when AD was at Bleacher Report, so
Right.
he was doing national stuff
league-wide,
and not
he
Avs
wasn't
stuff.
around. Yeah.
Well, and that was the other part of the AD thing too, talking about like finding your identity. That was a big like gives credibility to the show move at the time. Like, we brought in Adrian Dater to be part of this show.
Yeah.
We're the real deal. We're in this. And it's just so funny how like the different phases that the show has gone through, where that was what we were trying to do. Like, hey, is this how we blow it up? Do we go get a name that a lot of people recognize and be, I mean, that wasn't the only reason, but like that was a big part of the motivation of putting him on the show. Was this is someone who people will know and they'll tune in just to hear what AD has to say.
Yeah.
It's a little weird that you went from AD shortly after to me, which is someone that like nobody knew.
Well, and there were
In the comments saying that they used to follow you.
The
when
7
you posted
people
yours.
that still follow me from Reddit, I love every single one of you. Thank you so much. But
that was
I'd like to mention how nice people on Reddit have been to us. I mean, maybe I'm not on it enough, but every time
You don't go
you
on
are
after the
definitely
shows?
not.
Yeah.
every time I've been on it, I feel like I've seen people say really nice things about it. And even me and you, somebody once called us Blink 182, right? When they were together, they're like Blink 182. Now they're apart. They suck.
I like Angels and
Something along
Airwaves.
those lines.
that bad opinion, but the first part of that was awesome.
No, but seriously, I really do like, including the shows that I was on. I think the ones that I most enjoyed listening to were the original iteration, AJ and JJ, and like AJ and JJ. How do you like?
Yeah,
Come on, it just goes so well.
It was very natural in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
where there was a concern about being taken seriously and credibility and professionalism, but there was also like, you don't want to be too rigid, you don't want to be too uptight about stuff, you don't want to be, you want to. It's a podcast, like it's a format that's supposed to lend
Perfect
itself.
example of that. Can you dunk? The can you dunk question.
Here, we got the super chat right
we
here.
get that question
What current member of the Avs can
every
dunk?
week. Somebody still asks
Son
that
of a
question.
bitch. That was all my fault. I mean,
That literally happened as you said it.
That's so funny.
right now I do a weekend radio show with Ryan, who was with the Avs at the time, right?
Yeah.
So he still gives me shit about that question because they used to talk shit about us for asking that question. It's like, you guys didn't understand. Like, it was just a fun way to try to
Funny thing,
connect
yeah.
our fans with the players that nobody else is doing. You have
Yeah.
everybody else being so robotic, and they just took it the wrong way, I guess.
Were there
Well,
ever
and-
any
and-
yeses?
Oh, no, we only got it asked, twice? I think Adam Werner once and Zadorov once. And after Zadorov was like, obviously offended by my question.
He was not. Could you score a goal?
And I was like, of course I can score a
He
goal.
was like, he straight up. He goes, I scored one last night.
Yeah, I score all the time. What are you talking about? But yeah, when he was visibly offended by the
Yeah.
question, I was like, all right, I guess this question isn't as fun as I
Nikita
thought.
Zadorov is tall. He's not that tall that you can assume that guy can dunk on sight.
Yeah.
Like, he's
I mean,
big.
Should be
but
able
he's
to.
not-
If I was that tall, I'd be able to dunk on sight. Easy.
nice.
I mean,
get big time
I
this
only
again.
need, like,
Hey.
3 or 4 more inches, and I'd be able to dunk. I don't know. I'm not that
Are,
tall.
are you sure?
Yeah.
You need 3 more inches and you could dunk a basketball.
I can reach the rim, just not with a
All right,
basketball.
it's
Yeah,
gonna be a
I was
video.
gonna say, well,
We got a
we
video
have a
coming.
camera, we have microphones,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we can find a basketball.
I can grab the rim.
That-
I won't be able to dunk.
It's gonna be a fun summer.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
I'll buy you a steak dinner when I finally buy AJ
Yeah,
a
you,
steak
you
dinner.
owed him a dinner for a while.
COVID
Hey,
really wrecked that.
Yeah, I'll say I was totally gonna do it last year, but
Yeah.
For what?
Co-
Did you lose a bet?
Yep.
it was the Miko contract that they would get it done before the end of the season.
I don't remember anymore.
It was it
but-
had something to do with the Miko contract, and AJ won, and I've owed AJ a steak dinner for
A while
3 or
now.
4 years at this point, and I
still
will
have-
make good on it.
I still have a video, look, even pulled up and everything, of some asinine comment you made. I don't even remember
it
what
was
it
that
was.
Andrew Ghetto had scored
was-
like 20 goals or something like
Is
that.
that what it was? Let's see.
He's got to pull it up and listen to it on the mic.
I remember it being something super
It was something with
ridiculous.
Andrew Ghetto.
50 points.
50 points. 50 points.
We
You're
have
bad
like,
at bets.
I don't know that he's had 50
hope
points
you're not
in
on
his
DraftKings.
KHL career.
No, no, I don't think he has.
In like a
I was
season.
feeling real good about that one, and I still stand firm.
Yeah.
With a little bit more health, I would have gotten the Burakovsky one.
You
the,
were on pace
The
for that
30
one.
goal
Yeah, you were
Burakovsky
on
one.
pace for that
With a
one.
little bit more luck, I would have had that one.
Yeah, I mean, if things went the way that you wanted them to,
Yeah.
I would owe you a steak dinner. But
I see some large super chats over
Yes.
here, so let's get
Can
to
you
some
guys
of them.
believe we've already been on for 50 minutes? This feels
50?
like
50?
it's been like
Yeah,
20 minutes.
That's exactly what I wanted this
How
show
long
to
are we
be.
supposed
Well, the first 30
As
minutes,
long as we
AJ
wanna
and,
be.
and
That's
Rudo
fine.
were running off the stage every 4 minutes.
Yeah.
hey, you know what? Sometimes things just come up, man.
All right.
Life happens. That's one thing you told me back in media school. I tell everyone that now.
Sasha here saying, here's to another 1,000 shows. Y'all kick ass.
Could we put that towards the yacht fund?
Yeah.
Yes, that goes to the yacht fund. Then
Middle
we have
of
Pinking
town.
here saying, let one of the bartenders choose the shots and come up with a new one that is not on the menu. We've got those
Sure.
here. Ryan, will you deliver them?
Oh, we have shots?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Wait, what?
Yes.
I wasn't ready for that.
Me neither.
It's a very, it's like
Why not?
it
Oh, all right.
looks like watermelon-y.
I'm excited.
These
for this.
giant shot glasses. I was complaining about large shot glasses no less than a week ago to someone.
That sounds like such a Jesse thing
That's
to
what
do.
I was just
I
gonna say.
know.
You should just start a podcast just complaining about random shit.
Jesse's jabs.
What's the deal with shot glasses?
I tell everyone at work because I get this.
Oh, jeez.
Shockingly, I get this stuff everywhere I go, and my only response is, "You should meet my sister." I am the voice of reason between me and my oldest sister, and it always freaks everyone out. But Jesse's jabs, I actually like that.
Okay.
All right, we doing this?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Look out,
Cheers
coming to Apple
to
Podcasts.
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000.
Cheers, you guys. Don't break the mics.
Delicious.
Tasty.
Okay, we have a few more super chats.
Hold on, Ali. You said, was that a shot that wasn't on the menu and was just invented? Is that what
Did
just
I get a
happened?
cucumber fizz up here?
What was it called? Give us some more background on that.
I don't know. Ryan went down to order them. I got to stay here.
I just had being a celebratory shot.
Oh,
1,000th episode.
well, it was delicious.
It's the
Okay.
DNVR shot now.
All right,
Confirmed.
we have a super chat here from Luke. 100. Oh, it really is.
100
Super
Canadian.
chat.
All right, so $4.
Rudo,
10,000
I'm gonna throw
pesos.
something at you. All right, the boys are back. Love all of you. JJ, Jesse, you still faking the GF?
Ah, that's another one.
Jesse's
Yeah.
not real girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because
That
we
was-
did not meet Hannah for a very long time.
Very long time.
I
And
was
yeah,
gonna say I've met Hannah. I know she's
yeah.
real.
Thank you. Thank
yeah.
you.
He just keeps paying the same person
Yeah,
every time he
yeah,
has to go
Thanks,
somewhere
Allie.
publicly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't a fake Hannah show up on the chat not too long ago?
No, that was Dater's
Oh, that was a fake.
There was a fake Jesse.
There was a fake Jesse. I remember
There was
that.
a fake Jesse.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Who was AD's?
Sheila.
Sheila.
Oh, that's who it
Sheila.
was.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it was Sheila.
Sheila was in the chat, and then there was a fake Jesse. I texted Jesse hey.
She said
and he
something
was like, "That's
very
not me."
offensive, and I was like, she's like, was this you? I was like, no, definitely not.
Okay, Luke continues and said, "Love ya. You guys got me through some hard times this year. Thank you for the greatness. Also, new DNVR fan member coming December. Congratulations, Luke. That's so
Damn,
exciting.
Luke. Wear
Can't
protection,
wait to see
dude.
you, AJ.
Whoa.
That's
Luke
kid
from
number
Winnipeg.
2, isn't
Buy
it?
them scotch.
Yes.
All right.
Pippa getting a brother or sister.
We need to bring
down,
Hannah
Luke.
on the show.
Okay.
Bring what?
We've got all summer.
I can FaceTime her.
I've been trying to convince
I
my
can
wife for
FaceTime her
years
right
to
now.
do a review. She won't do it.
Well, so I actually
Z
tweeted
has
out
no interest.
a couple weeks ago. It was after one of the, I think it was after like game 4, and it was like kind of late, and I had all these pent up Avs thoughts, and I had no one to do a show with. So I tweeted something about how I was going to be talking to Hannah about it all night. Someone was like, "Do a show." Hannah actually owns a shirt that says, "I just hope both teams have fun." And I was like,
I've seen that shirt.
I don't know if she's got much to add, but so yeah, we'll bring her on here.
That's amazing. Okay, Sasha gave to the yacht fund again.
You're still way behind Luke on
Are
the
we
yacht fund tonight.
keeping track of the yacht fund?
It's still in the
What are we in, like-
921,999,000
We're like $60
range.
now.
Yeah.
For that $22 million yacht we want.
This is the stuff that makes you guys awesome, though, right? Like, I have no idea what the hell's going
Yeah,
on with
yeah,
this
yeah.
yacht fund, but you and your listeners do, right?
Yeah.
It's like this bond, this cult that you guys have cultivated, and it's awesome to see it in action. I mean, I'm not
Once-
a part of it. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know. I'd be nice
I don't
to be
describe
filled
the
in, but
athletic either if it makes you feel better.
Once on the Denver
Me
Sports
neither.
Podcast, we came to the conclusion we're a fun cult.
we're a fun cult.
I'm with it.
Still a cult.
I feel like that's
It's
what they
just
all say.
fun. Yeah.
We're not like regular cults. We're a fun cult.
Yeah.
Our
Beer
ending-
drinking, jort wearing, fun cult.
Like our happy ending is a little different in the fun
Oh,
cult.
God.
Oh, boy.
Like
What's the next chat, Alan?
Well, I mean,
Okay,
like
Dan
some of
is
these others are
saying-
like mass suicide, right? And like our ending is like a team. A
That's
team
no-
wins their
You
championship.
can't say that word on YouTube.
No.
You're gonna get us banned.
Stop. Okay,
just
you
Dan.
can say that on YouTube. You can do anything
No,
you want on
you can't.
YouTube.
Uh-uh.
You can't anymore.
We've gotten in trouble already. All right, Dan says, congrats, DNVR Avs. Love hearing the stories, and it's so clear how much blood, sweat, and tears have gone into your work and the success of the pod. Love the show. Love the coverage and the analysis. My brain. Love the passion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
My brain just...
The-
Appreciated.
It is funny because like we all know how much goes into making an hour-long show.
Headlines
Yeah.
still
And
spur
it's-
actions.
It's not as easy as like, oh, you just show up and talk for 40 minutes about a thing that you really like and then you leave.
Yep.
Like, you know what that is? That's all those other podcasts out there that last
That's what Stephen A. Smith does.
6 episodes. That's what those were.
Well, and the other thing with that too is like that is what the show comes out sounding like, because once I know it's a little bit of a different setup now, but like once we spent 45 minutes setting up all that equipment in the old office, like
it was more than 45 minutes.
right. But like it
all day.
was a ton of fun. Like
Yeah,
that, and
the
that
show
was
was
why
still a
we did all of it.
blast,
So it was
yeah.
like, I want to get through all this so that we can talk about this. And then like the reality set back in as soon as you stopped. All right, thanks for listening. Oh shit! Because like that's what it was all about. Was like it was a ton of. It's always been a ton of fun talking about this. And what I was going to say earlier about like the original shows with like you and Jay, or, all the ones in the media school. They were so fun because the team sucked and they were so shitty. Like we had to have fun. Otherwise, it's like no one wants to listen to a podcast about a 48-point team.
Well, speaking of, we have a chat here saying, I think I found BSN around the 2015 or 2016 season. I was astonished at the quality of the content from the very beginning. Being an out-of-country Avs fan, you guys have given us fans the best coverage.
Shout out to all our Euro fans.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
I mean, all of the people, like JJ
Yeah.
mentioned, like we're
Yeah.
I mean,
This-
hearing somebody say something like that, especially like I was saying, we used to get out of that podcast and say that sucked, and that somebody during that era was listening and found it awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
like I don't know, it's crazy, it's
Yeah.
insane. I still think we suck, even after all these years. It's like,
After
Yeah,
every
this episode really
after
sucked.
every show, there's that part of your brain that's like, this sucks, right? Like, should we even post this?
Yeah.
Well, it's just you catch yourself midway through a sentence, and you're like, nobody gives a shit about what I'm
Yep.
saying right
Yep.
now. Who would listen to
Or
me complaining about everything?
I'm
Who would
sure
listen
us
to that?
three can relate as drivers of
Yeah.
the show, right?
Yeah.
That there are times where you just feel like you're talking just to finish the sentence.
yeah.
that
Right.
Everybody knows what you're gonna say. Everybody stopped listening, but you just have to keep
Yep.
saying the words
Yeah.
like I'm doing right now.
When I first started on the show, actually, like the first 4 or 5 shows, AJ was technically like hosting it because he'd been on the show forever. And then like that weekend, he's like, "You got to host a show, man. I can't do this."
That was the exact same way that I got it. He drove for like an episode and a half, and it was like coming out of the second break. He was like, "Can you just take over doing this?
I just
Can you
didn't
bring us
like
back
it,
in?"
dude. Look, you got to know your strengths.
Yeah.
Mine was not driving a show.
That first day of ad reads, nothing like the Manscaped reads
Oh,
y'all
God.
get today. All right, it was super tentative back then.
Do you also remember when we didn't have sponsors? We just play music in between the segments.
When it was like a big thing because we got like local artists to send their music
That's
to
so
us,
cool, though.
so that it was like, hey, we can like give you guys a little extra promotion, and we don't have to pay for music in between those.
And then
And
it
we got to take breaks, most importantly.
Right.
All right.
Dude,
reset.
I miss breaks.
And then-
I miss breaks
Yeah.
on the podcast.
And then once the local artist thing fizzled out, we were just straight ripping music off YouTube.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sure no one will listen to this. That'll turn us in. It's fine.
We had like a whole 2 months where our intro was just copyrighted songs.
Well,
for sure.
you get a cease
whole
and
2
desist
months.
first,
Yeah.
and then you stop.
You get the copyright claim. Oh, yeah. We still have artists, go back to old shows that are live on our YouTube and claim those things.
Hey, don't
Oh.
sleep on the Pakistani Super League or whatever that is.
Well, dude,
dude.
all the old intros were just music we didn't own with abs highlights we also didn't own plugged in there. We're like, this sounds great.
We've got Tiffany here. She says, "Love DNVR so much. You guys made it worth staying up after those late games. East Coast crew. Currently have the game up in the corner of my screen because I couldn't miss the pod."
See,
Thank
like
you very
stuff like
much.
that.
Yeah.
Tiffany?
It's like,
I don't.
It's amazing.
It's hard to
It's
respond
amazing.
to it because you're just like, what do you say?
I
This is
never
Right.
know what to say. Yeah.
yeah.
It's tough.
Do you remember? Obviously, you fucking remember the draft show sitting outside of United Center after day 1?
Yeah.
And you, me, and Andre, those first draft shows were so fun because they were all at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
We're the only ones in the media school. We'd have all kinds of food. And yeah, you were out in
I was in Chicago.
and we figured out how to use the call-in thing
Yeah.
on the board. So AJ called in live on the show, sitting on the ground outside of United Center
Yeah.
after his first ever draft day coverage. And it was, again, just like a really cool moment that
I remember the show you guys did in Vancouver before the draft. It was like 2 a.m. the day before the draft. And AJ's like on the pod raving about how Chicago loves Nicola Baudin.
Wait, Vancouver?
I think it was Vancouver.
Dallas, maybe? Was it us?
Yeah, it was both of you.
Dallas.
It
It had to have been
Dallas.
Dallas.
When was
Dallas,
Dallas?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it must have been Dallas.
That was
then.
the cow draft.
Yeah.
That's how I remember my years.
Who did the Avs take?
No,
that
it
year?
was it's because they were all very distinctly different.
Yeah.
17 was Chicago.
Yep.
It was my first one. I did not bring comfortable shoes, so I only had dress shoes, and my feet were so blistered from walking around the city.
Oh.
Do you
And
know?
then Dallas was we went to Vegas for the awards.
Oh my
which
God, that's right.
Was awful.
Yeah.
And then we went to Dallas. We had like flight delays, and then we got to Dallas, and like Dallas was 1,000 degrees, and
Yeah.
they wouldn't let us in the building, and like that's the stuff that I remember.
So-
And then 19 was Vancouver, which was a very, very different experience.
So, if you want to read this one, I'm going to take a little detour and talk about our trip to the awards and the draft because there's some fun stories that we've never talked about on the pod from that trip.
I mean, this is. Did you all even travel when JJ was on the pod?
No,
Didn't even consider it.
So
we didn't have any money,
I
man.
mean, yeah. There's
we
an
played
evolution
music
right
in
there.
between the breaks. There was no
Literally had
sponsors.
someone send you a mic.
Yeah, we had local artists sending us free music and listeners sending us equipment.
Yeah, consider travel.
Rytown 5 here said Vancouver crew with the Montreal game on my second screen couldn't miss the 1,000 pod. And then we got a lot of people saying East Coast crew.
So
East Coasters.
He's here.
Yeah,
Mike Tyler.
That's
He's here.
But he said East Coast.
he's not East Coast crew at this moment.
Yeah, he's in here.
What does that mean?
So yeah,
From New York.
Oh, just people shouting
Just-
out to these crows?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
all right. So I'm gonna park a couple minutes here to talk about this because, one, do you have a guess at what my most like vivid memory of being in Dallas is?
No. There's a couple of things that stand out to me that I remember off the top of my head.
So all right.
Number one was the entire hockey media being
This
at
is
Pecan
it.
Lodge.
Oh,
At the
no, not that.
same exact time, and me being like, this is my Twitter feed in one room.
I'm talking about when all those same people were standing on that grate outside of American Airlines Center because it was literally 95 degrees with 90% humidity. And there was this
hotter than
giant grate in the middle of the sidewalk because they wouldn't let us in.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let us in like 7 minutes early. And everyone's out there for media in business casual at minimum.
Yes.
So we're all sweating our asses off. And all those same people that are in Pecan Lodge, there's this grate that's blowing cold air out of the ground. And we're all just standing on it like 50 yards from the media entrance, just
Yeah.
waiting for them to wave us over. And it was
All
hilarious.
of hockey Twitter pulling a Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. Seriously, 'cause it was
like,
that hot.
We tried to get in,
I could see LeBron being all
and
cute.
like security, and like all these dudes are in like nice suits, right?
Well, because some of them are doing TV hits.
Right.
Like,
and everybody is just sweating balls, dude, because it was 95 is very generous.
right.
It was,
Yeah.
It was over 100 degrees. And it was just, and the sun, based on where the arena is and like how it's set up, the sun is on top of you. There's no shade.
Yeah.
There's no reprieve. Which is probably why they have giant grates of air conditioning blowing up from the
Air
street.
conditioning the city.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Literally,
dude.
like some of like the big guns, like Bob McKenzie, Elliot Freeman, were asking security, like, can we go stand right there, like
Yeah.
just inside the doors? Like, you don't have to let us onto the
can
riser.
you guys at least let us into this initial
the air
room?
conditioning.
Right.
area,
And they
yeah.
seriously, they were like, no, sorry, we
Yeah.
can't let you in. So yeah, we were all standing outside on the sidewalk in this giant grate. But so that whole trip started with AJ and I were going from here to Vegas to go do the NHL awards because Nathan McKinnon was up for the MVP and we felt pretty good about it. So we're like, we need to be there. That way we can be there to get questions. We had a flight that was leaving at like 7 and we knew that we had...
Why is Carey Price behind the net?
yeah.
Sorry, Jesse.
No, you're fine. So we had...
too have it on the second screen. Chad.
we had talked about how, like, all right, on this trip we're gonna have one night where we aren't running around with our hair on fire, and it's our first night in Vegas.
Yep.
So we're gonna go out our first night in Vegas, and it's gonna be our one night for the entire trip where we aren't working our asses off. Our flight was set to leave at like 5:30 p.m. It was this insane, like, wind storm. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
It was like, it was insane. So we're sitting there and our flight is showing on time and just every flight on the board, delayed. Sure enough, ours rolls over, delayed. Gets delayed again. Suddenly we're sitting in the airport. It's like 10 p.m. and they cancel the flight. AJ and I had gone to get food because they had told us, yep, we're taking off here in like 40 minutes. So like make your last little accommodations and we're going to start boarding.
I remember this.
We went to get food and we come back and there's this huge line at the counter. And we started asking, like, what happened? Like, they canceled it. And so AJ and I are looking at each other and there's another flight going out in like an hour. And we were like 50th in line.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're not getting on that. So I picked up the phone and I called our airline from the back of the line. I was like, hey, our flight just got canceled. There's a later one for this night. Can we get out? She was like, yeah, I can put you guys on that one. So we like jumped ahead of everyone who was waiting to get up to the counter. So we get on this flight. That one got delayed like 2 hours. So we end up flying out of here at like 12:45 a.m. So we land in Vegas. By the time we get to the hotel, we almost missed our window to check in and they would have given away our rooms. We made it literally with like 7 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
They released your room at 2 a.m. We got there at like 1:53.
Damn.
For real. So we check in and we both look at each other. We were like, we're drinking tonight. Like, we made this commitment to each other. So we just start slamming Four Locos on ice.
Baby.
We went and got
baby.
Four Locos. It was my idea. It was my idea. We went and got Four Locos. I got us some cups with ice, and we just started drinking them. We went down to this bar inside the Link, fucking 3 a.m., and we ordered food, and I started ordering AMFs. I was like, we said we were going to do this. I got so drunk sitting at that table. I looked at it and I was like, I have to go upstairs.
Yeah.
I can't make it out of the rest of this night.
This dude was this close to passing out in his plate of wings that he had ordered. And so we wait, our food gets there, and he eats like one wing, and he's like, I am so tired. And like, he's just like, and I'm like, yeah, like it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Of course you are, right?
We're eating wings and drinking AMFs at 5 a.m.
And he just keeps saying it, and he's like, I'm so tired. And I'm like, yeah, I got it, dude. And then he's like, I have to go upstairs. And I was like, you ate one wing. And he's like, I have to go upstairs. And I was like, all right, man. So he leaves. He like goes upstairs. And
I got a box. I got a box for the wings. Put them in the fridge.
He bounced. And it was because it was 0 to 100 back to 0.
Yeah.
Real quick.
He was done.
Yeah, it was too much too quick. Well, so then we get up the next day and we go over to the Hard Rock Hotel, and they can't find our credentials.
You remember because they told us, you need to go to Hard Rock to get your credential.
Yep.
We get there. We find like the PR desk or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, why didn't you go over to this other totally random hotel and get your credential?" And I show them the email where it says, "Pick them up at Hard Rock," and they're like, "Oh, well, that's not correct. We don't have any credentials here."
And they're like searching through their system, like, "What's the name again? Spell it for me." I was like, "No way is this happening."
Yeah.
And so they ended up just like, okay, well, and because there was something, I think AD had reached out to someone that he knew, and he was like, hey, my guys are there like on the ground and they can't get their credentials. So we got like generic credentials that like don't say our name, no pictures, nothing. So like
NHL media sticker.
Yeah. Because like most of those, for those big events, they give you one. You have to like register ahead of time. They have your name. You have like an ID
cool
number.
Lanyard.
Yeah.
Instead of the string.
And well, and so we get these like these
day
like
games.
temp credentials and all that stuff. So then we go into the room and watching those. The NHL award show sucks as it is. It's 10 times worse if you're there covering it.
Yeah,
I believe that.
The only reason that you would go, and this is what we learned, is you have to go and you have to get red carpet access.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't need to be there.
Which we did not have because we had temporary meet.
We
I barely got in. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And it was just, so covering it is just a ballroom of tables.
With 2 TVs.
Yeah.
Two TVs. You're in a ballroom with 2 TVs watching it just like everyone else. And then they bring all the award winners in. All of this leading up to the big award of the night, and Nathan McKinnon loses.
Yeah.
So we were there. We went through all that, and we didn't even write a piece. And we had to get up the next morning and go to Dallas and sweat our asses off and melt.
Yeah, we had like a 6 a.m. flight to Dallas.
And then the draft. I feel like the draft went
Oh, the draft was fine.
Pretty well.
It was a good time. We had fun.
Joe Sakic spoke to us like individually and asked us like, what are you guys up to tonight? Great to see you guys out here. And I was like,
So-
what's happening to me right now? Like,
They got done. They draft Kaut, and then like they trade for Grubauer, and we are just hanging out. And John's like, "Oh, Sakic is going to talk where the prospects are talking." So we go over there. We do that presser. We do the whole presser, and then we get done, and he just doesn't go anywhere. He's just like, "What are you fellas up to?"
What are we doing tonight?
And Jesse and I look at each other like,
like before we answered, we even like side-eyed each other. Like, is this a loaded question? Like,
Yeah.
should we answer this?
like, is Joe Sakic making small talk with us right now? Because you know how Avs PR is with like, don't talk to Joe.
Yeah.
Like, he's like super off limits, right?
Sure.
And he was just like, "What are you guys up to?"
What'd you
Hey,
say?
you guys like in Dallas? We're like, oh, we'll go eat some food, maybe a drink. He's like, yeah, we're about to go over to this restaurant.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for you guys should join us. And obviously, it never came.
Like, I was like, "Oh, well, I grew up around here, so I've got things to do, and blah blah
Oh,
blah."
wasn't that we met up with your buddy? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like,
He like stepped down off the riser and like was just like chatting up with us, and I
Yeah.
was like, all right, this was all worth it.
so this happened also in Vancouver. because of the way that the setup was in Vancouver. You know how we had like we were on the ground, and then we would walk back into the media area. Well, Vancouver wasn't like that. Vancouver, you were on the risers, and then when you had to walk back up onto the concourse where all the fans were.
Oh,
and so
really?
we had to walk to get to the media area. We had to walk all the way around. We had to walk all the way around the arena where all the fans are, with people stopping everybody and whatever. And I got done they got done with all their picks that day, and Sakic was like, so what are you gonna do tonight? And I was like, oh well, the fiance's in town, and we're here with friends, and so we want to. And he's like, oh, you should check out these 3 sushi places. And so like I looked them up later, right? And I'm like,
Not in your price range at all.
Hall of Famer salary level sushi places. Yeah.
like, this is advice coming from a guy who hasn't thought about money in the last 15 years.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, yeah, I should take the fiance to like, this is great advice, bro, if I was in that tax bracket.
That was also, the draft in Dallas was also where I learned how people like Elliot Friedman and Chris Johnston and Bob McKenzie, how they end up being the ones that just so happen to break all those stories. I figured out the trick.
Go on.
We aren't eligible for. They are different level media.
Yeah.
We had to sit in the risers. All
The entire media except those cats has to sit in there. They get to wander around the floor.
The
and
draft
talk to all the
tables.
teams.
So everyone
Like tapping shoulders.
Yeah. Well,
you picking?
dude, seriously. Like I remember AJ and I were sitting there,
It's exactly like that, bro.
and like one of the tables picked up the phone, and you saw them like start to like
Congregate over there,
wander
yeah.
over there, like literally listening in on the phone call.
It wasn't like Darren Drager started running, but he started briskly walking.
Yeah.
Like straight to where that phone got picked up, and he just like rolls on over there, and you're like, okay, this may.
So
Our badges said media.
wait.
Theirs just had a star on it.
So what was the congregation when the Avs just forgot that they were on the clock and had to make a pick?
I asked Joe Sakic about what happened there, and he said that it was confusion from
They were expecting like a video package to play.
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
yeah, there was supposed to be a highlight package that played before their pick. It never happened.
Yeah.
And so they just sat there and watched their time run out. And then they were like, somebody from the NHL was like, so, and they were like,
Yeah.
we're ready to
We're
ready to go.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's funny because like you watch it happen, and you're watching the time is ticking down.
Yeah.
Nobody's on the phone. They're barely talking
just
to each
sitting
other.
there waiting.
They've made the
Like,
decision.
yeah.
They've got the jersey, and they're all just literally like,
Yeah.
They just zoned out. It happens.
Real quick, we have
We have an
great
insane
super
super chat from Brandon.
$125
Whoa.
from Brandon Watson.
Dude, Brandon is my guy. I
He
love
said,
Brandon
He's awesome.
Too
so
many
much.
thanks for this crew. Jesse's back. Thank you for helping me rediscover my love of hockey and creating such a great community, company, and this family of Avs super fans. AJ, you are one of a kind. Rudo, such a great addition. Jesse, more club level.
I'm working on it. I want to have
Thank
some of
you
these
so
guys
much,
on there.
Brandon.
Yeah, seriously, Brandon.
Brandon Watson is one of the secret heroes of our company's
Straight
history.
up.
Dude, seriously.
Straight up.
That someday when the documentary gets made, he will definitely be a big part of one of the most important DMs I've ever gotten. So he wanted me to mention it, and it definitely was like,
He's also
I'll
just
put it
like
out
one of the
there.
it was
best.
super important.
He's just like one of the best dudes. Like he's
Yeah.
just,
He's an
he's
awesome
just
dude.
awesome, man. I love Brandon.
He's
Yeah. He
Yeah,
is also a
it
genius,
also
yeah.
helps that he's
Yes.
a genius,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a legit genius.
like all of you need to follow in Brandon's footsteps, and on game day, everyone just send me all of your memes, please.
I was going to say, everyone follow and giving 125.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
too.
you guys
all
please,
seem to
yeah.
be like
Rudo,
Brandon.
be
Yacht fund
thankful
gonna
for
fill
what
up a
we
lot
have.
faster.
Big dents in the yacht fund.
You say that, but even if we got 100 of those,
Yeah, it wouldn't even be close.
yeah, yacht fund is still at like 1%.
I like how he mentioned there, and I feel like over the years you've seen this a ton, right? The rediscovering of your hockey fandom. Right? I mean, that's what we have all been through these last 25 years. We never left, really. I mean, I guess I
Yeah.
did briefly during the first lockout, but
Same.
that's been so important for so many of what was BSN and now DNVR's listeners is like you were mentioning, the team was so freaking bad back then, but we were somehow able to get people interested, get people excited, A, because nobody was doing it, and B, there's just no substitute for actually being there, right? We were able to kind of make that bridge of...
I would also add being there, but also giving a shit about what goes on.
Yeah, truth.
Because being there and caring about what's taking place is what has always separated us through all the iterations. It's always just been like, look, we care about what's happening.
Well, you go to training camp and you see a living metaphor for that, right? You've got most of the media guys crammed up in that, whatever that box is over there, that room.
The media room,
just talking to each other, enjoying their bagels. Nobody's paying attention. Usually just Mark Mosier talking about God knows what, motorcycles and rock and roll. And
it's very true.
Yeah. And then Peter McNabb telling his stories of old.
Peter McNabb was one of my favorite people to talk to at practice. He's very different.
Agreed, but he won't stop. He won't stop. It's like, Peter, I'm watching the hockey. Like, leave me alone.
He will hang out until spoken to, and then it's go time.
Right, in his New Balances.
Yeah.
And
no.
Untied.
Whoa, what's up with the New
Hey, that
Balances?
wasn't a shot. That was just an observation.
That's just something that's true.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have the rest of us. You know, I think that's actually where I met you, Rudo. We're sitting in the bleachers watching the hockey, trying to figure out, all right, this is what they're doing with this drill. All right, you know, there's just a big gap there, I think, in, like you said,
especially
the care.
in Denver, where it's like, it's no secret that the Broncos, regardless of if they suck or not, they're always going to get the most
They're number
coverage.
one for sure.
And like, that's whatever. And it's for so long, it's always felt being a hockey fan. I remember like resenting the Broncos as a kid in 2001. The Avs won the Stanley Cup, and like still like one of the biggest sections, like one of the biggest stories in the sports section was like what some Bronco player like ate for lunch during the offseason. And it's like, oh my God, the Avs are in the Stanley Cup final. Like, who cares about what this guy's doing? And that's what I think so many people gravitated towards. Like, this is something that I care a lot about. And it's awesome to see that there are other people in this town that care enough about it to get up and talk about it or write something about it or do anything about it with the same like passion that I have for this team.
Yeah.
I think there's two sides to it, right? Training camp is one of my favorite times of year.
Same.
I'm not going to name any names, but there are some people out there that are
it's
like
the end of the offseason.
that are like, this is when they have to go back to work. But I think for us, all of us is like, we get to go watch hockey again.
Yeah, it's like back to the rink, and it feels good, and it's satisfying.
Exactly.
Right. It was like back to school when you get to see your friend. Obviously, the school part wasn't motivating, but you're like, oh, I haven't seen Jesse in 3 months. I can't wait to see how his summer was, right?
Right. Well, and then the other part of that, too, is once we were having to do 5 shows a week by mid-August, I was like, I'll do anything for on-ice activity. I'll do anything for on-ice activity. Yeah.
The pandemic, the hockey gets postponed, and we're getting into July, and it's like, right, so the 2003 Avalanche roster.
Yeah, we rewatched.
You can only do so many Mount Rushmores, and so you can only like predict so much. You can only, but no, I fully agree that really is, and that's I think also what going into this last season, you can make the argument that this was like the best roster that they've had
in a long
time since 2001 at least, and I think it was like some of the least excited I've ever been because that part of it was missing.
Yeah,
I hadn't not been at training camp in over a decade. I was at opening day of training camp every year for well over 10 years, and last year like it wasn't even an option, and the media coverage just wasn't there, and it wasn't the same. There wasn't that access and pictures from training camp and the guys in the locker room and the prospects having to use those horrible family sports locker rooms. And it's like just none of that.
Not being able to talk to them.
Yeah,
because you have to get PR to walk all the way around and like grab one of those guys.
Out of those lockers. And it's just like, that was part of it where it's like, I missed all that. And I legitimately felt more disconnected from the team this past season, what should have been like the most hyped season, the most exciting season in over 20 years. And it just like, it never, so like there is almost part of me where it's like, I'm glad they didn't win it this year. Like
100%.
It fizzled out too because of them not being on major television for Comcast providers too. Like everything was working against them building momentum as far as being that vibe in the city.
And I even remember that when they were in the bubble last year, I remember thinking, I was like, this would end up being the year that we're going to have to watch them win the Stanley Cup on TV, and then we're going to have to watch like a live stream parade through like the like docking station at the Pepsi Center where they bring in the away team bus. Like, this is going to suck. And so like there almost is like a level of it that's like, yeah, no, they were just waiting until next year anyways. Like, this is all part of the plan.
Allie is like pulling up all these old videos of us.
Yeah.
Just the ones that I could find. We've got just live streams that we did.
Using the Mevo.
Are there
in
people
the old...
still listening, you think? Like,
Yes.
just 2 hours.
We've got
What time is it?
One of our
We've
most
got
popular shows is
150
just me
people.
live watching a show. It's just my face. Like,
That's, I mean, again, just goes to the
Which is what I was
loyalty of
saying,
your listeners.
for the expansion draft. We get a bunch of us in here as it's going on. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
we just hang out and talk about teams being stupid.
yeah, the league as it
I
unfolds.
went to the last expansion draft.
I remember that. The day before, you're like, dude, I can get a $28 flight.
Yeah, I
A
literally
$50
went
hotel room.
because it was so cheap. Because it was during the week, and if you like, I was buying the night before $15 hotel room, like $28 flight, and then I bought like some super cheap ticket to the actual expansion draft. And I remember being so pissed that they took Calvin Pickard. I was like, no, that's like the goal of the next
I know,
guy.
I was upset, too.
Yeah.
That
people
stung.
are shocked Evan without his couch.
Yeah, couchless in studio.
And not wearing a hat. I haven't seen him not wear a hat in a long time.
Is this the famous chair or no?
No, that's the new
No.
chair. You have to go further back.
Those are the
for
Rudo
for
hostage
the
videos where you looked like you were like being forced to do it from that close
That's
up.
how I look in that one.
If you want, you can find the chair if you go
We're
to.
matching.
That's a great
Look
color,
at
though. That's a
us.
great color. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Aw.
looking good.
DNVR 2 has the chair.
With our little BSN mugs.
I actually almost wore that shirt today for this.
I was cleaning out I found my original BSN Denver shirt in
Really?
the back of my car and was like, can't throw that away. We're keeping you.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that like really like stuck out as far as funny shows or like funny moments or
I think the thing that stayed consistent with all three of you is that the show is fun.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, there was a time at the end of our run where it felt like work.
Yeah.
Just go to DNVR 2 and scroll back. You'll find the chair.
And that was the only time like I wanted that season to end for a lot of reasons.
Well, and I just remember like it was one of those things where it was the same show every single night.
Yeah.
Well, the Avs lost 5-1 and no one looked good. 4 people got hurt
Yeah.
and everything's terrible. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, the
Like-
Avs lost 4-1 and it was just like by the
There,
end of
scroll
that.
down a little bit. You're almost there.
But I mean,
Hold on,
Look at-
like scroll down just a touch.
some of your thumbnails
Yeah.
Yeah.
are just.
I get adventurous with the
One of
thumbnail.
The thumbnails kill me, man.
Oh, this was back in the old office. Trade deadline
Yeah.
special.
Go there, down one more row. There's the chair.
Oh God.
Do you have that on the screen? Can the people see that?
Yes, the people can see. Where'd it go?
Yeah, trade deadline. I'm trying to. There was something that I thought about a minute ago that was a really fun, like drawn out show. That chair started black.
Yeah, it was like leather all the way.
Jeez.
If you
How
go,
long did you have it?
Well, 10 years, a decade, probably. Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of wear
Yes.
for 10
It-
years.
That is part of the Rudo lore of like my channel before I joined you guys.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole like evolution of it falling apart on my channel if you go back far enough.
What were you doing to it?
Nothing.
Just.
Using it, living in
Oh
it.
my God! Look, the Mevo is
Nothing.
like tilted.
It's like the whole like this guy took a picture of himself every day for 7 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's like.
The Mevo.
We are
is
literally at a 45-degree angle in this.
Yeah, like
Oh
what?
man.
Allie, there was one of those like BSN minute or whatever we called them
Yeah.
that you and I were doing, that there was something that you just could not get out, and we kept having to reset the prompter, and we had to record it like literally like 24 times because you started messing them up to the point where as it was coming up,
Oh, we
I
were,
would
like,
start laughing,
Yes.
and like we
Oh
just
my
couldn't
God.
get through it because
I think it was someone's name.
it was a name, or like it was the way that like the name went right into the next word or something.
Oh,
We just like
that's-
couldn't get past it.
That's
And-
a great behind the scenes story too. Is when I first started here, Allie would call me all the time and ask for people's name pronunciations.
Hilarious.
And after like a month, AJ was like, "Stop calling him for those. Those are wrong."
Well, because
Those are wrong.
I used to find his videos before he even worked for DNVR pronouncing names, and I was like, that AJ said that's not how you say it, but okay, like I'll see. And then I was like, oh, we're hiring that guy, the guy who doesn't
Oh, the
know
guy that doesn't know anybody's name?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay,
me.
great. Yeah, I think with it was like some hard name, because I remember calling AJ all the time being like, how the
Yeah.
hell do I say this?
Yeah, and then after a while, it was my fault because I knew, just the
We couldn't stop
anticipation of it
laughing.
being messed up again. I just couldn't stop laughing. We sat there for like an hour trying to do a 4-minute video.
Oh, bloopers are the best, especially when you start getting frustrated and you're just like, I hate.
I'm over this. Yeah.
We've got Michael, who's here in the room now.
Yeah,
that I
shout out
learned.
Cygnus for bringing me this beer. Much
And
appreciated.
Michael Tyler. Saying anyone remember the BSN Avalanche hotline? And I remember just it
Oh
was
yeah,
BSN
I remember
my
those
hotline.
shows.
Oh
and Jesse
my
would have to go
gosh.
Mikey from
in
Brooklyn.
and grab
That was him? I never knew
Yeah.
that you were Mike from Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's Yo Mikey.
I never knew that.
That's Mike.
Dude, that is hilarious. I totally forgot about that. That was actually a fun little thing that we did
Yeah,
there for
it
a while.
was.
I enjoyed that. That was a
It was
ton
a
of
good
work,
time.
but I enjoyed that. Hey, Mikey.
That's
AD.
one of the weird things to me because we 100% just adapted that into live chat now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like there was a part of it that people liked calling in because their call got put on the
the
show.
show,
yeah.
And like their voice got to be on the show. And that was another one that was a really fun experiment with. There was a couple shows that we did that we ended up having to completely redo. So we tried to like get real fancy, like play them in live so we didn't have to edit them back later, and it would actually turn off everybody's mics when you do that. You'd play the call and it would shut everybody's mics off.
So
We still
bad.
deal with that problem today.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
yeah. That's really fun. I did not know that you were Mike from Brooklyn. That's great. Yeah. That's hilarious. No, those were super fun.
And we've got a super chat here from
$50.
Victor
Nice.
saying
Very
congrats
generous.
on the 1,000. Always much love to the crew.
Victor's one of
I
our
can't even
dudes.
imagine what 2000 looks like.
Double this.
How different.
Literally
how
1,000 episodes
different.
away.
There's no way the path to 2000 is nearly as interesting.
Not a chance.
There's no way.
Yeah. I was gonna say because it's polished now, and
Yeah.
the fun is the early stuff.
The
Yeah.
messiness.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. The getting it to this point.
Sorry, Chad, but y'all are stuck with me. I ain't going anywhere. All right, I'm still gonna be hosting at 2000.
Brandon was saying he wanted to talk to you after this for
Oh,
something. I don't
shit.
know.
All right,
Probably
well.
probably unrelated.
Guess I'm out. New host for
About to-
1001. Yeah,
About to fire you from Belize on his honeymoon.
I really did something wrong. I guess.
Let's also not ignore the fact that of those 1,000, I was a fraction, you were a fraction, you were a fraction.
Yeah,
you were
yeah, yeah.
literally all of them.
975 of them or something.
That would be fun to
yeah.
go through and see how many you were on. Yeah.
Well, there were
That's a
the
great point.
AD only episodes on Fridays because we needed to do 5 a week, and he wanted kind of the freedom to do his own thing. And so I wasn't on any of those.
Well, and I also
sure
know
those
that
were a
was
hit.
one where you and I looked at, we were like, hey, if that means I don't have to do it on Friday,
Well,
go for it.
And then I'd been working for the company for a month, and you're like, taking a week of vacation, bro.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
There are some of
Peace
those,
out.
depending on what you have to talk about, there are some of those ones by yourself that are so fun because, like, you're the smartest person in the room when you're the only one in it, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's why Ben Shapiro's so successful, right? When no one's there to rebuttal you, you can say whatever you want and you get away with all of it. And it's like, sure. But it's like, when you do those
So,
pods, you can-
hypothetically, if the Avs traded for Alex Ovechkin, and
Right,
hypothetically, if there wasn't a seller, okay, I'll stop.
I think the Avs should do this, and this is why. And it can be completely outlandish, but who's going to stop you? And you're all already listening, so it's not like you're going to turn it off.
Yeah.
You deserve a Rolex, AJ.
Yeah, get the 1,000th episode.
I know.
plaque.
Why didn't we get him a silver mic or something like that?
I know Uber gives like pulled over hoodies for their 1,000 rides.
That's it.
Would
if you
like
if
to
you drive
hold
for
the goatee?
1,000 of them, so
You should at least get like a Columbia jacket, just a pullover Gildan hoodie.
yeah. I mean, if you guys want to give me a silver mic, that'd be cool.
I'm down.
Yeah, let's say get on that. Whoever.
I found
here we
my
go.
year
here we
one
go. The
BSN
goatee.
Denver
The
trophy.
The
Yeah.
goatee.
You have to hold that for the rest of the time that we do this.
Great.
Be careful, the goat might actually fall down.
Okay.
You got room on the plaque behind you.
Detailed goat.
We went hard for the goatees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Look at that.
Sprung for the top shelf.
Yeah.
Little cartoon.
Yeah, I was gonna say with your cartoon crown right above it.
Yeah.
Golf clap.
I don't know how I'm the one that stayed, but
But here you are.
yeah.
Silver yacht is in the comments.
Yeah.
Oh, the silver yacht,
Great.
of course. Add another
I
million
was
onto
gonna
the
say, as if
22. Yeah.
the 22 million wasn't a daunting enough number.
Well, I think I know why you got to 1,000, AJ. I mean, there's nobody I've ever met that knows and is as well-rounded as you, right? I mean, when I joined your team, you really made me realize, like, holy shit, there's such a whole world of prospects and
So
potential draftees that I know nothing about, but you do. You know that. You know the X's and O's. You know the current team. You know past teams, and it's no surprise. 1,000 episodes later.
you were like the first person that I met that wasn't like, and God, I hope this doesn't offend you, but like who wasn't like a traditional like hockey guy that understands the game as well as you do. And like we always talk a lot about like the people that like qualify. Oh, you have to have played, and like which you did.
Yeah.
But like hockey's full of so many types of people like that, and I feel like that was a side that JJ and I always brought was like the more, and funny now saying like analytical side, but like, oh, watching this and this is what that guy's trying to do and this, that, and the other. But like you understand it on like from a different point of view. And you were the first person that I really met. And like, honestly, this is probably going to sound a little bit over the top and you're going to shake your head. But like, I really do feel like you were the first person like in hockey podcasting that approached talking about the game from that side. Like now there's all the, the dudes that do like the PDO cast and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like you were the first, that was the first time that I really remember like hearing JJ talk about what that guy's actually probably thinking and what he's trying to do there and, what conversation he's probably having with the guy next to him. But then you were able to approach it just from something completely different that he never even touched on. And I also feel like that's what established the show as being so listenable is this isn't just two old school hockey guys talking about hockey. This is someone who's been around hockey, played hockey, whatever their whole life, and then someone that just understands the shit out of the game.
I mean, since we're pumping his tires,
Well, not even necessarily pumping his tires. Like that's honestly like how I feel.
Speaking the truth.
Yeah, seriously.
the dude puts in the work. Like his
Super
knowledge base is insane. Like 10 games into his career, AJ's over here talking on an Avs podcast about how Zach Whitecloud is a dude.
Yeah.
And here's some
True. And now look at him.
Yeah, exactly.
like, and I'm gonna sell AJ out a little bit here, but like the other thing that's impressive about your knowledge is you don't have to put in the work. There'd be times where like you'd call us like, hey, overslept by 45 minutes, get in the car right now. Sorry, like I'll be there soon. And you'd show up and just lay it down. And so like that again, that's the other thing is all that stuff off the top of your head.
100%. I had to prepare. He's just ready to go.
Yeah, AJ rolls out of bed a little bit late. He's like, "Oh shit, yeah, let's do this."
Yep.
And again, that's why I think the show has survived and been popular and gained popularity or whatever, is because you've always had people that have looked at the game in a very different sense than you have.
Yeah.
And going all the way back to calling back to what you were saying about. Oh, I feel like we have a lot of people tell us now that we agree a lot, and I feel like that's because you guys both are now kind of like analytics and looking at the game at kind of the deeper level and the prospects and stuff like that. But that was really you were the first person, like I said, that I knew that did that looked into the prospects and talked about that stuff on a knowledgeable level. And I felt like JJ and I brought our fair share of like charisma and knowledge and insight to the game and stuff like that, and our own unique angle.
Me more than you.
Right? Yeah, JJ more than me. Yeah.
It's true.
Seriously. But it was again. It's not necessarily stuff that like people have heard before, but it's like I've heard people talk about it that way before, and you just kind of you forced us to learn that other side of the game, and I see this guy do A, B, and C. But what you aren't noticing is X, Y, and Z, and you forced us to kind of pay attention to that. And I feel like I'm a smarter hockey person for that. And I don't know if I would have ever gotten into that side of the game had I not met you. Forget doing the podcast or anything. Just met you and gotten to know you and understood it the way that you look at it.
And we have people in the comments agreeing that they've learned so much through listening to AJ and this podcast.
Y'all, for real, like these days especially, y'all make my job so easy. Between you and Blaze, like I'm just like, all right, point the concept.
The what now?
I host a podcast, I swear.
So he's telling us, so I'm saying stuff's going to get us suspended on YouTube.
Point the conversation in a direction, and you and Blaze will just take it wherever it needs to go. It's for real. And that's, I'm thanking you, but also, like, this job wouldn't exist without JJ and Jesse doing this.
But I get what you're saying. I remember that, right? You're entering, trying to open a conversation. You like don't even have that good of a question, and AJ just takes it, and suddenly it's a great conversation. Oh, well, I did my job. I'm sick.
Well, and don't get me wrong. Like there's plenty of old pods where you can go through, and it's AJ and I screaming at each other that like, no, what you're saying is ridiculous. Like that's not what it is. Or that is or it isn't. But again, like that to me, people. For people that have listened to me on this podcast and you know making the joke, like I'm very opinionated, I'm very loud, like I will have the conversation about everything, but like that's what I always appreciate about AJ is he never ever once took it as arguing, fighting, screaming, nothing like that. This is what makes good conversation. This is how you attain knowledge. This is how you get smarter. You look at stuff from a point of view that you never really like considered before. And there were plenty of times when AJ changed my mind and I changed AJ's mind through just hashing it out and talking sometimes over top of one another. Yeah. But again, it's because we look at the game different. And some of the chats that are coming up, I think that's what a lot of people have liked about this show for a long time is I don't know a lot about hockey. I like this team. I want to learn something. And you can come to this podcast and learn a lot about different sides of the game. And I think that goes all the way back to when it was you and JJ, then it was you and Dater, then it was you, me and Dater, and then it was you and me, and now it's the current iteration that it is. And it's I come here to learn stuff that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of before. Or, hey, I'm super into the analytics, and oh, you know what, JJ, I never did look at it that way, or I never thought about, oh yeah, I guess I didn't take into account what that player might be thinking or doing. And you've always kind of been like the catalyst to all of that. It's who can be the counterpart to your kind of way of looking at not just hockey, but like the world, honestly. Yeah. And I think that's what's made it so fun and so special.
I got to do my breakdown videos or whatever, all the little abs videos we would do with Rudo, AJ, Jesse, and Dater. And it was always so cool because it was always different perspectives that all led up to what was actually happening with the team. But like I could ask each of you the same question and get different answers that really like taught me and the fan base so much, like so many different sides of what was happening with the team. It was so cool.
Well, and that's why I hate like this imaginary feud that goes on within the media.
I remember you always talking about that.
It still bothers the hell out of me because it still exists. Like,
took me some time, but I'm with you.
Right. You just have these people that I don't know. Nobody wants to be friendly. Nobody wants to chat abs. I get in there and I'm friends with everybody. I'm friends with Mike. Recently now friends with Dater even. You have something in common with all these guys. Why sit there and create tension? Why not just
you're going to be around them.
Right.
Yep.
All the time.
All the time.
And it helps to have that conversation, what you're thinking about the Avs, why not ask Mike Chambers and see what he's thinking? And then you can help develop a way better opinion about things than just having this rigid, I'm the guy, I cover the team, I know everything kind of mentality.
Well, and honestly, and I really do think that was something like that kind of mentality is something that this, and again, I hope this doesn't sound like I'm like being a dick, but like this podcast, not even necessarily so much like the writing or the content of the site, but like the podcast itself really kind of drove, because there's so many of those guys that they're not even necessarily there to form like real opinions on the team. They're there to write their articles and do their job. And I'm not knocking that. Like, they're all very good at what they do. There's a reason they've all been covering the team for 20 something years. Like, they're good at it. But like, they don't have interest in getting your opinion because they don't really care. And I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but it's like, why would I care what you have to say? I'm here to write my thoughts and that's it.
It's a different approach.
Right. And this was the first time that, and again, this is what drew me to listening to you two in the beginning, is these are two people who have differing opinions on a lot of the stuff they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get to a conclusion or an answer, a solution, whatever. And it's just it's the most fun way to listen to it.
It goes all the way back to JJ talking about, look, we're always looking at the Twitter comments or people telling us XYZ on the show, whether it's pumping our tires or whether it's negative criticism. If you write for a newspaper, you have your column and you write it. Like, you don't really have any direct feedback on that that you pay attention to. But for the entire existence of this podcast, long before I was ever on it, there was always that connection with the listeners, the viewers, the whoever, that straight up, this podcast wouldn't exist without all y'all.
Well, and especially early on, that was the only motivation to do it. There was no money behind it. There was none of that stuff. It was like, we're just doing this because these people seem to like, these 10 people seem to like it. And these 10 people turn into 20 people. These 20 people turn into 100 people. And, so on and so forth. And it's just, to me, it's not surprising that there's people that listen to this podcast and there's people that are very passionate about this podcast. And I think a lot of it comes from that side of it of, yeah, I was a fan, I liked the team, but I wanted to understand the game more. Or, hey, I've played hockey my whole life, and I love the game of hockey. And for a long time, I really felt like this was the only place for an Avs fan that you could come and get, like, legitimate hockey conversation, not even, like, 31 thoughts, like, analysis, breakdown, what are you hearing there? It was just like, we're just going to talk about what we watched. And that's what I think has made it so fun.
AJ, we pump your tires anymore, you're going to pop. So
Yeah, I'm not. I've been very uncomfortable.
Some people in the comments asking if AJ, you want to say anything.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. Is you've done podcasts with all of us and then some. So what's your view on it?
I mean, to hear the nice words from three people whom I've developed legitimate friendships and I have a ton of respect for over the years, it's very flattering. And then the fact that we just have so many people here, after 1,000 episodes, like 1,000.
That's a lot of shows.
That's a lot of shows. Like
1,000 episodes people actually listen to too.
And like you go and you look at like other great shows, like you look at like the PDO cast. They're on like episode like 678, something like that, right? Like whatever they're on. And it's just like that's a ton of really good content. And I can't say that ours was 678 really good episodes and then a couple hundred more after that. But I feel like the one thing that I've always been really proud of about our show is that it's always been real. Yeah. It hasn't been fabricated. We don't purposely take opposing viewpoints just to stir up conversation. We'll have those conversations from different viewpoints, and occasionally we'll play a little devil's advocate just to get in there.
Yeah.
But it's not faked, We acknowledge that walking in, with all three of you in very, very different ways. It was always really genuine and passionate, and that was the thing that makes it easy for me to feed off of. I like passionate people. I like people that give a shit about anything. Yep. And to find the three of you guys that cared as much as I did about Avalanche hockey and wanted to talk about it and wanted to be around it and just wanted to immerse in that world every day. Because it's one thing to care about the Avs a lot and to watch the games and all that, but it's totally something completely different these days just to every day to care about everything that happens, Jason Megna gets a 2-year deal, and it's like, okay.
Let's break this down to the micro fraction.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to spend too much time on it, but we'll talk about it a little bit. We'll acknowledge that something named an Andreas Wingerly happened. Like
Wingerly?
That dude exists.
The right winger, Wingerly?
And look, I'm sure many Avs fans that grew up watching the team, as we all did, probably experienced the same thing, especially in this city during the late 2000s, where maybe people recognized Matt Duchene's name when he was drafted, but you start talking about Ian LePerriere and people look at you like they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, and that to me was what made it so fun, even though they were getting their heads kicked in every night that we were doing the podcast, was that it's like we all care regardless of what happens. And that was what I think where that like initial like super passionate listenership came from was the team sucks and nobody in this town cares about them right now except for you guys.
Yep.
It made it easier to get into it and build an audience, but what I like about it now is that it built towards something, and that something has been the rebirth of a fan base.
Yeah.
You know, you see so many people are coming back to hockey or coming to hockey for the first time, and what I'm so excited about moving forward is that we get to be part of that.
Yeah.
That we get to help that fandom grow and guide it and, you know, nurture it and be a part of it.
Yeah.
And we, you know, that was really hard to do a long time ago when they were awful. When JJ and I would be sitting there and we'd be excited, we're about to cover an Avs game, we're in the press box, and laptops are up and everything is set up, and 4 minutes into the game they're down 2-0.
Being
and
outshot 12-1.
Yeah, and it was just like.
And then having to go into that locker room, loss after loss after loss.
Do you remember that 48-point season? Walking into that locker room was like literal hell.
Dude, every time they lose a game now, I get PTSD flashbacks.
Same. Like I like want to crawl in my shell and not ask a question.
It's a horrible feeling.
That's weird to me because I have weirdly fond memories of that time. The first YouTube video on the Avs I ever did was Valentine's Day of 2017. And I just needed to yell into the void of the internet about how dumb
against
and
the Blackhawks?
terrible this team is. I think it was, yeah.
Hey guys, congrats on a pass.
See
Take
ya.
it easy, RK.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the
What?
Calgary
Oh.
Valentine's Day.
It was not the
Valentine's Day massacre,
No,
yeah.
thankfully it wasn't that.
Nope.
That had just been a 5-minute video of me
Well,
crying.
so when you said that was your, I was like, that was the night you picked to do a first video. I couldn't even like get up.
Well, I mean, yeah, but in 2017 it was the opposite. Like the Avs had already been eliminated. It was the worst season of hockey you could possibly imagine, and so it was just like, what if I talk about how terrible this team is on the internet? And obviously back then, I didn't expect anyone to care, and it's still surreal to me that even someone like y'all and AJ picked up on the fact that there are people out there that want to do this. No, whether the Avs are a terrible team, whether whatever team you cover is awful, or whether the best team in the world, it's something I wouldn't trade for anything.
Yeah.
So
I think the other fun part of it too was that while everyone was kind of at different stages, everyone kind of like we all went through that together. Like I remember being how excited I was that first time they handed me a media credential, like checking in at Pepsi Center. And
That's how I met JJ.
yeah, and like that, just all of us being like so young in that, and all kind of going through that together. And the first time I asked Sven Andrighetto a question, and AJ had to save me.
All right, who was your first interview? Sven,
yeah.
Mine was technically Mason Gertzen.
so do the Eagles count in the
Yeah,
ECHL?
absolutely.
Emil Romig was my first interview.
What?
No shit.
Yeah.
Of course, they both know who that is.
For real. Mine was Blake Como, and I chose that purposefully, right? Because it was his first training camp with the team. He didn't know I was new. It was my first training camp with the team, so he was very respectful and polite. Like I'd been there forever. I loved it. It was a great choice. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was a fun little question.
Do you have a favorite from over the years in being in the Avs room?
player?
I would say a list of favorites because it always hurts to pick one.
Oh, I'm sure you could guess them. Just seeing the way I would comport myself in that locker room. Varley, hands down my favorite.
Okay.
Closely followed by Pickard, right? Me and Pickard, that year before he got taken, I honestly felt like Pickard was a legitimate friend of mine.
Yeah.
Like, I would just chat with him about goaltending stuff all the time. He taught me about the elastic toe ties before they were a thing.
I remember when he told you about it, you were really excited.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, my life just changed. So yeah, I mean, I always gravitated towards the goalies, right? So it was weird for me once Bernier came in. He wasn't very friendly. Grubauer came in, he's not very friendly. I was used to Varley and Pickard, who were awesome to me.
Yeah.
And since then, my heart hurts a little more.
The first interview I ever did, it was after morning skate, and it was actually not long after I had made that 40-point prediction, and he came like screaming out of the gates. He had 4 goals in like 2 games, like 2 assists, and it was coming off of when he scored 19 points in like 13 games or whatever with the Avs. So he came out of the gates super hot. He was leading the team in goals with 4 goals after 2 games or whatever it was. And AJ goes, all right, who do you think you want to chat with? I said, I'm going to go talk to Sven about, his hot start. And he goes, okay, are you sure? He's kind of a tough one to crack. He's a little bit like edgy, a little standoffish. Are you sure? I was like, yeah, no, I got it. I'm very outgoing. I talk to people. I can shoot the shit, whatever. So he's like, all right, I'll walk over there with you, and just whatever. So I said, hey, do you mind if we grab you for a couple questions? Yeah, sure. Seems super friendly. And I said, all right, cool. So, 4 goals coming out of the gates hot. You're leading the team in goals. How you feeling? He goes, it's 2 games. I don't give a shit. And I just kind of stood there, and I saw AJ look at me, and then he just took over, like for the next couple questions. And I think I got the courage to ask like 1 or 2 more, like real softballs at the end.
Yeah, he snuck back in with a couple at the very end, but it was pretty funny.
After he picked himself off the ground.
Yeah. Just because I was even sitting there, I was like, I'm gonna go in there and like, hey man, you're leading this team in goals. You got guys like Nathan McKinnon. How you feel? And I thought he was gonna like,
be excited about it,
pumping his tires. He goes, it's 2 games. I don't give a shit. I was like, oh.
That's one thing that definitely threw me off heading in that locker room. I thought I'd go in there like, I'm young, I play hockey. You're young, you play hockey. Let's be cool together and talk hockey. They have zero interest in being friends with any media members.
I got Nate to talk X's and O's with me for like 5 minutes once, and it was like one of the like coolest conversations ever. 'Cause we were talking about the power play, and I had stopped recording. And as soon as I hit stop, he like started elaborating because the power play was struggling, and I was asking him about like, what do you guys, and he was giving very like surface level answers on the record. But then as soon as I put my phone on, he's like, yeah, so let me kind of explain to you how that's supposed to work and like what we're actually looking for. And it was the one time that he sat there, and every time after that, he like gave me acknowledgement, like he at least like knew who I was. But that was like the one time that I got one of them to like actually like talk like hockey with me. Because I was the same way. I was like, yeah, I know the game. I can talk. Yeah. I'm young. I'm like right there with you guys. Right. And
That was my first interview with the actual like Avalanche. First person I talked to was Belmar. Gave me a great answer for every single question I had. Dude's an awesome interview every single time. Love him. And then I talked to Donskoy second. 4-word answer for every single thing I asked him. Just like the immediate contrast of like you have a good interview and a not great.
It reminds me of Francois Beauchemin. I'm like, here's a veteran. I don't know who else to talk to. I want to talk D. Why not talk to the guy that's been around the league? He's seen some stuff, and he was the same way. And a thick accent, very quiet.
So
too,
when I was in Sweden covering the Global Series,
man, you just travel for this team.
Yeah.
You love them more than they love you.
By a lot. I went and I talked to Kerfoot because I was in this locker room. I was like really one of the only people in there because like not a lot of people were there covering like the practice days ahead of time. And I was just like, I felt super uncomfortable because like normally when there's all the other media in there, you can kind of like blend in and you can, So I just went over and talked to Kerfoot for like 7 minutes because it was, again, just like the comfortability thing. And he was willing to give me, drawn out answers, well kind of thought out. So I always gravitated back towards him after coming back home because I was like, I know he'll give me something that he won't give me a Sven answer.
I do think that that's one of the things in media that I found most surprising was how uncomfortable I am when it's like you and one other person that walk into the room.
Yeah.
And it's like the more media there are, the easier it is to kind of just blend in.
Yeah.
And the easier like the way that the players react is different. Because if there's like 2 of you, they're like,
yeah.
Like, someone is like smoking weed at the vent up here.
At the vent?
Yeah. I just saw some like smoke blowing and everything.
I don't smell or see any.
I smelled it.
I think we're fine.
Yeah, I don't know, but
JJ's like, nothing. Why don't you mind your own business and let's move
Move
on?
the show along.
Is that what it was? You got your vape over there? Is that what?
Let's move the show along.
Is that what? All right, I see.
And
The video evidence will show. All right.
I think
Let's
it's
move the show along.
I think it's funny though because like
Is it weed? It might not be weed. I don't know.
it's like because like you go in there and you like go up to and talk to a player, and if you're the only one there, it's like they lost the lottery, right? Like like they drew the short straw that day. Like I gotta talk to somebody.
On days when we would walk in there, we'd be like the first ones. I would just get out my phone and just scroll Twitter like, oh, I've got a bunch of stuff to do before I can even start talking to someone, and just wait for more people to come in.
Yep.
Because I never wanted to be the first one to go up to someone.
Yeah, it sucks because it's like they want to get out of there and go, and so you're like that, and so it inherently just doesn't feel very good to like go up and talk to somebody and like interview them and be like, okay, so like I'm trying to talk to you, and this person's like in the back of their mind like I just want to get the hell out of here, dude.
Right. Or especially while they're trying to talk to one of their teammates and you're just standing there waiting for them. They see you out of the corner of their eye. They're just trying to keep this conversation going.
If I don't look at them, they won't ask me
he
a
might
question.
go away.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there like, I gotta do this, man. Sorry.
I also never. It took me a long time to figure out at what point to go up because like if they're like taking the tape off there, I'm like, oh well, I'll wait. I'll wait a couple more minutes. Let them get their shin pads off. Then suddenly you look up.
They're gone,
They
dude.
bolted.
That's when you have to talk to them because they still have to be sitting there while that's happening.
They still have their skates on. Can't run.
There were a couple like Colin Wilson used to always do this where he would be like, just give me a second. And he would like put you on hold.
Colin Wilson was like,
and then take everything off.
Yeah.
And then
he
would
was
get
like
to a certain point where he would be like, okay.
a very polished media hockey person. I know you know the story. One of my favorite locker room moments was in Sweden. I went up and asked JT Comp because he was going to be his first game back after being out for a month or something like that. And I was like, all right, obviously it's the first question. How's the hand? I was like, left hand, right? And he goes, no, it was my right hand. It's doing better. Go through the interview. I turn it off, and Colin Wilson's over. He goes, you're not supposed to say that. And he goes, what? He goes, you never tell him where your injury is. You're not supposed to tell him which one it was. And he goes, oh well. And I was just like, well, thanks. See you later. Like, I've already
promise I won't tell.
Yeah. Oh, I already. That was all live. I just live streamed that. No.
Dang.
But like, yeah, he is. You're not supposed to tell him that. Never tell him where the injury is.
This reminds me of an interview that I did with a player, and I won't name them. I did an interview with a player where they used explicit language, very adult language, and I was like, you're on the record, right? And he was like, yeah. And then halfway through the interview, like Kerfoot was like Kerfoot was like, bro, like tone it down. And this player like looked over at Kerfoot and just straight up goes, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And Comfer was sitting in between them, and Comfer just goes
JT
and gets up and leaves. And he and Kerfoot walk out together, and Jost was also sitting in that corner, and Jost was like, he had his back to everything as he was putting his stuff up.
It's like a game of Guess Who now.
Yeah, I thought
he
it
was
was
like-
Jost.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Does he have a mustache?
and he was like, we'll talk about it off air. And he goes, and Jost is like looking at him on the corner, and he's just like, not part of this.
JT Comfer was one of the most puzzling individuals in that locker room because you go in there and
pretty straightforward.
he's messing with everyone on the team. Media people, trainers, teammates. He's like constantly cracking jokes, throwing things at people, like messing with everyone. Hey, can you get some questions? Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the game? It was good.
Yeah,
We
he
played
just
well.
like looks down at
Yeah,
the ground.
and it's like,
just kinda-
dude, you had the most personality in this room 7 seconds ago. I hit record and you shut down.
Robot mode engaged.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not confusing.
Yeah.
It's a shtick. He knows. He's not gonna give you anything, because if he doesn't give you anything, then we don't go and talk to him anymore.
Yeah.
Why do you think Nate McKinnon has been, since he went superstar mode, he has been full diva with the media?
Yeah.
Because he knows, like, if you're really sour after the media and you give them bad answers,
They won't ask you
we
anymore.
won't talk to you after games.
Carl Soderberg. I got Carl Soderberg alone one time. Everyone was standing around Landy. It was after a big win. everyone was standing. I was like, I'm not going to go be the 90th person to stick my phone in.
Yeah.
I looked over and it was like, Carl was one of the only people in there. I was like, screw it. It ended up being like a great interview. He gave me like long answers and stuff. Like, that has never happened before.
The one time it happens with Carl Soderberg.
Yeah.
My first ever interview with him after he got over from Boston, and it was like, oh, are you looking forward to playing this kind of role with this team, an expanded role from the depth guy that you were in Boston? He was like, God, ask the coach about that. And that was his answer 3 questions in a row, and I was like,
okay, thanks.
At least those are hockey related.
oh, dude, I'm not even getting into that.
Is there anyone still left listening to this?
Dude, there's a surprising amount of people.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna
But
say.
if
This isn't, this actually
Cole
is,
Caulfield is fun to watch.
go Haps.
this is actually perfect.
Yeah, that's where
I'll
I'm
say,
going.
before you do that, AJ and I, before every single show for like 2 years. All right, let's make this a quick one. All right, thanks for sticking with us for an hour and 45, guys. Like,
P.S. This still happens.
yo, I'm sure. Yeah, I was
same
gonna
here.
say, and that's what is great about this being 2 hours. It was every show. All right, seriously, let's do a quick one.
Always like, all right, we're gonna get into final thoughts. 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, where are you gonna?
I was in a big hurry when I got here, but now that my car stuff is taken care of, I'm like, I'm pretty much
We had a
done.
plan, and we spent 30 minutes talking about EJ's horses, so now we're here in the show.
Dude, what a goal.
Yeah, I
Oh
started
my
the.
God, man.
If you made it this far in the podcast, bless your heart. With
Yeah.
you,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
still
yeah,
use
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
still use that because exactly, it just goes
All
on.
right, but for real, I do want to end the show with. I'm going to put you all on the spot a little bit. Favorite moments from when you were on the podcast.
Like, favorite moment?
Pick if you have one that stands out. Go for it.
Why don't we start over there? We'll
Yeah,
go
make the first,
left to right.
The first of us start.
I like the one that I already brought up. It's really the one that stands out the most when me and AJ are sitting there trying to do a serious podcast, and he won't stop playing with the turntables and the different sound effects. And I'm like, AJ, focus, and he's hitting the shattered glass button. And, yeah, exactly. That hands
Shattered
down
glass
stands out the
button.
most, and it's exactly what you guys were saying. It was the fun behind the podcast, right? I mean, we had so many work memories and like doing things very rigidly, but when it was coming down to the best memories, it's about what fun we had and the laughter that we had together. So that was the most important part, was the laughter for me.
Yeah.
I'll say 2. One is in the middle of the pandemic when I found out AJ spelled God ROY.
Yep.
He had a few drinks that night,
I was pretty lit that night.
and then
Pretty lit that night.
the other was when the Avs got eliminated by Dallas in Game 7. Obviously, in the moment, very, very sad. But the outpouring of the community, and like I'd been on the show for close to a year at that point, and it was probably the first realization for me of like,
They like me. They really like me.
not just that, but like what this company has actually built as a community of just so many awesome people. And
People who care.
yeah, exactly.
I'll make you go last. But honestly, we already talked about it. My favorite memory is probably that Vegas and Dallas trip, because it was absolute chaos for AJ and I almost every step of the way. But we cranked out like 4 or 5 podcasts on that trip, and every single one of them was a total blast. And people would have never known that, like, literally we were like crawling to our hotel room by the end of that. Like, by the end of that weekend, just to like make it home.
Yeah.
It like almost killed us. But looking back on it, like, it was so
We were
fun.
exhausted, man.
Exhausted. 'Cause it was literally after that first night where I almost died. It was just a sprint. It was a sprint to the finish. And it was every moment where we had to catch our breath, we had to do a podcast.
Yeah.
And again, looking back on it, that was what made it so fun. Was like, we're going through all of this, we're killing ourselves because we just love it. And like, I wouldn't be doing this for, a normal job. We're doing this because we're just 2 dudes who just care this much that we're willing to put ourselves through this. And so I think that weekend was probably my favorite. Looking back on all of it, that was probably my favorite moment.
Yeah.
You're up.
AJ's got to think hard on this one.
Yeah. Well, it's like,
He's got the most episodes to
Yeah.
replay.
well,
this time.
I've got different memories with each of you guys. Like, my favorite thing about with JJ was I loved the window. I love that the window became a character on our show.
It did.
And because I've always worried about being a little too uptight and a little too rigid, which is funny because you were the uptight one when we started. That totally flipped as it went on, and I thought that the window became a character. I always thought that was just the funniest thing, and honestly, like just how easy our show was, like the way that it just transferred from us talking hockey in the press box to the podcast, and I don't know, it's been very different experiences with all three of you, but with JJ, just how natural it all just happened. Yep. Where it was like there was no figuring it out. Like Rudo and I are both socially awkward, and we had to like work around each other's awkwardness, and it took some time.
It took a while, for sure.
It took some time, and there just wasn't any of that with JJ. There wasn't any like adjustment. Yeah. We sat down and turned it on, and he had the show prepped, and he asked me to just show up and talk, and that's why I was like, great, this is what I want to do. And that's what we did, man. We just showed up and just talked, and it was just I think that's the thing I took away from it, was how smooth and natural it was. And then ours, it was definitely that. It's crazy to me that we slept that weekend.
Yeah.
Because it was like nonstop.
Yeah.
It was go. Like you go upstairs after your failed attempt to eat wings.
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Like it's 5 a.m. and we had to be up at 10 a.m.
We had to be at the place at 10 a.m.
to go and get credentials and start and like go through our day. And it was like, it was just the longest day. Yeah. And then that night, I was like, I remember because I was pissed off about the heart, and that's when I got this tattoo.
Oh, dude, that's right.
Yeah.
Which is, I talked about it on a show like a couple weeks ago. So easily that trip was just, it was so chaotic.
Yeah.
And
looking
then,
back in the best way.
Yeah. And then with Rudo, it was the pandemic.
Oh, Jesus.
The fact I don't remember any of them,
not a single one.
But the fact that we did, the world shut down. Yeah. And we did shows every single day
for 5 months.
For 5 months with no. I mean, there was nothing going on in the world.
Yep.
There was no sports. There was nothing. We showed up and did shows.
Because of you guys, I joined Twitch just to watch your FIFA tournament that you had.
God, I forgot we did those. Those were so fun.
We were not the best announcers for that.
It was pretty fun. We were like, oh, that guy scored.
Yeah.
Well, I remember you going off on Paul Pogba. You're like, his first name is Paul. I can't believe that.
I forgot all about that. That's right. Yeah, so it's my ADs with memory, or my memories with AD are mostly just screaming at him and him screaming back, and then the show would finish and we would just laugh about it and be like, people will probably like that. And I don't know, just over 1,000 episodes. It's hard to believe. My personal favorite memory was Chicago.
Yeah,
covering the Cale Makar draft. We knew he was going to be. We knew that was a turning point in the organization. That was either they rebuild for real or they stay in the Calgary zone forever. Yeah. And you just end up stuck there. And they made the right pick. They nailed it, and they got a guy that's on his way to a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
So and just that night and the next day, my feet were killing me. And the Avs did me the biggest solid of all time. They drafted Connor Timmins with the very first pick. And I went and I talked to him. And then I went back and I sat down. And every single player they drafted the rest of that class was not in attendance. So I did not have to go anywhere. And my feet got to just chill. And because I had to go to like Walgreens and buy like
soles
and like shit for my feet because they were so blistered.
I thought you were going to say you had to go buy dress shoes at Walgreens. Like, I'm not surprised your feet were hurting.
It was such a stupid decision. This is my first time I'd ever traveled. I was a moron. And just that weekend, Chicago will probably always be one of my favorite media moments. But the podcast, sitting outside the podcast after night one, knowing that they had drafted Cale Makar and listening to team executives walk out of the building talking about it. and talking about my car and talking about Colorado and being like, people around the league think something's happening in Denver. And not knowing, right? And just being like, man, maybe,
Hopefully.
I guess, we'll see. And then having that progress to Vancouver and being there for those picks.
Yep.
And how funny that whole draft was, because they had just kept telling me they weren't taking a defenseman, and it was because they wanted Kirby Dach, and nobody thought Kirby Dach was going to go to Chicago. And then
he did.
Chicago took Kirby Dach,
And Bowen Byram was there.
They were just
Yeah.
like, we have to take Bowen Byram. And
Yeah.
so I had spent an entire draft season talking about they won't take a defenseman because that's what they had told me. And it was all about Doc. It was all about, and I got to feel stupid, but then feel good because they took the right guy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are my
That's
Highlights.
big time
We're-
podcast memories. Is like those shows, the draft shows, where we put so much work into
Yeah.
them and they paid off.
Yep. So we're well over 2 hours now, so we do have to wind this down. If you want to hear about us reminiscing more, hit us up, and we'll always come down, have a beer with you at the DNVR bar. So,
I was gonna say I have 2% in battery.
yeah, we're done. We gotta go.
I had 100 when we started.
We
I'll grab a charger.
we killed the battery. We love all of you so much, for real. This podcast wouldn't be what it is without everyone who has listened or watched any of the episodes. Yeah. Y'all are amazing. Everyone on the show is amazing. Everyone who's not on this show that contributed is amazing. We love you. We gotta go. We'll see y'all again tomorrow.